Chapter 738. Chu Fei Long almost spat out a mouthful of blood. Chu Xiongcheng, Chu Fei Yen and Chu Fei Ling also almost spat out blood. Chu Xiongcheng sighed in his heart. The world is big and full of strange things. He's actually my grandson, and he's actually born in the Chu clan. The Chu clan has been loyal and upright for generations. This is really a donkey that came out of a flock of sheep. That mouth of his was like a knife. Chu Yang wasn't done yet. He said with a sad face, "It's fine if you've wronged me. But for you to say such things about my aunt, don't you feel guilty at all? Furthermore, what did I say? I didn't say anything. Sigh, now I know what it means by, if you want to condemn someone, you can always find a pretext." Everyone fainted when they heard this sentence. They had seen shameless people and troublesome people, but they had never seen such a troublesome person. You've said the most unpleasant words in the world, but you just said, "I didn't say anything, and I'm too embarrassed to say anything," in the blink of an eye? Chu Fei Long's lips trembled and his whole body shivered. His hands and feet were cold. For the first time, Chu Fei Long regretted what he did today. His intestines were green with regret. Why did I provoke him for no reason? Now, I'm trapped and can't get out of this situation. Regardless of whether the test was carried out or not, I've suffered a great loss today. If word got out that the children I've raised for more than 10 years needed to be tested to prove that they're my children, then how can I continue to live in this world? But if I don't do the test, how can I get through today? You keep saying that you're raising someone else's children. Is that a good thing? Chu Fei Long held his breath and asked word by word. "Second uncle, you're being unreasonable." King of Hell Chu's words almost made Yang Ruolin laugh out loud. "Who's the one being unreasonable?" "I'm saying Chu Yang said with conviction. "Second uncle." He looked very sad and indignant. "The whole family is here. But no matter what, I'm still surnamed Chu. How can I say this?" Everyone scolded in their hearts. "You still know that you're surnamed Chu? Chu Feilong is so scheming. You've already forced him to the point where he's about to commit suicide. What else do you want?" "Sure enough," Chu Yang said, "in all my life, I've always left some leeway in everything I do. That way, we'll be on good terms in the future." Patience was like a knife above his head. No matter how angry he was, he would let go when he had to let go. If he could spare someone, he would spare them. "But second uncle, you didn't give him any leeway. Forcing me like this. So," he said with grief and indignation, "how far do you want to push me before you stop?" Everyone was dumbfounded. "Look at how magnanimous you are. You even improvised a poem, like a saint." But how thick-skinned did he have to be able to say something like this? "How far are you going to push me before you're willing to stop?" This sentence was definitely what Chu Fei Long was thinking right now. If someone else were to say this, Chu Fei Long would definitely hold onto that person's hand with tears in his eyes and say, "You're my soulmate." However, these words were actually spoken by Chu Yang, who was in the middle of forcing people to the point that it was too late for them to hang themselves. This was truly admirable. Chu Fei Long finally couldn't help but let out a sigh of relief. Then, he covered his chest and started to pant heavily. He stared at Chu Yang and said word by word, "If I absolutely don't agree to the verification of my identity, what will you do?" Chu Yang twitched his mouth and said, "Isn't that simple? For the Chu clan, for the blood of our ancestors not to be wasted, for the efforts of our ancestors not to be wasted, for our descendants to live on for generations to come. I'd rather kill 1,000 innocents than to let off a single one. Second uncle, don't forget. Our surname is Chu." Chu Yang's eyes were like lightning. Although he was lying on the bed, his cold and resolute killing intent made Chu Xiongcheng, who had experienced hundreds of battles, break out in cold sweat. Chu Fei Long laughed coldly. "You dare?" "I don't dare?" Chu Yang's eyes became sharp. "I'm the eldest grandson of the Chu clan. As long as I don't make any mistakes, this clan will be mine in the future. Second uncle, do you dare to make a bet with me? As long as you refuse to verify my identity today, I dare to eradicate them one by one in the future." He laughed sinisterly. "Just like what you said when you bit off my finger to force my mother, This is for the Chu clan. For generations to come. I'm upright and have a clear conscience. The atmosphere in the room froze. Not to mention these few people now, even if you're still strong and have a few more children in the future, every one of them must be verified by the blood of the tongue and the soul of the purple crystal. If I don't verify, I'll kill every single one of them. Chu Yang said slowly, I believe that the ancestors of the Chu clan will agree. Chu Fei Long only felt a wave of anger in his chest. Without thinking, he said angrily, let's see who kills who first. Chu Yang had been waiting for this sentence. He immediately turned his gaze and said, listen. This is also what second uncle said? So far, I'm the only one whose bloodline has been verified. That is to say, only I am your grandson. Second uncle, he actually wants to kill me for an outsider, Chu Yang said with endless grievances. He felt so wrong that he was about to cry. How could he not make use of such a great deity beside him? Chu Xiongqing was confused and dizzy. Suddenly, he saw that the uncle and nephew who had just acknowledged each other were at daggers drawn and talking about life and death. He was thinking in his heart, what's going on? How did they end up here while they were talking? Then he heard Chu Yang's words. He couldn't help but shout, how dare you? Chu Fei Long, what are you trying to do? Chu Fei Long's lips trembled and his face turned purple. He stared fiercely at Chu Yang. Am I wrong? Chu Yang shouted angrily, am I not doing this for the sake of the purity of the Chu clan's bloodline? Am I not doing this for your own good? Am I not doing this for Sun Wandai? Am I not doing this for the sake of the Chu clan? How am I wrong? Minister Chu said bitterly, how am I wrong? Second uncle, is this how you treat me? To put it bluntly, if one of your children belongs to someone else, how are you going to explain it? He said sorrowfully, you must know that there are many hats in this world. But there's a hat that has color. And it's like the grass in spring. Men don't like it, right? Second uncle, I'm doing this for your own good. Chu Fei Long shouted and spat out a mouthful of blood. His burly body was on the verge of collapsing. His square and dignified face was pale. He had never dreamt that he would be forced to such a state. Furthermore, his father was right in front of him. He couldn't do anything. So what if you spit out blood? I've been bullied and haven't spat out blood. Who are you putting on this act for? King of Hell Chu was already unforgiving. If you dare to treat the Chu clan's bloodline as a game, I'll ask my father to bring people to kill those who refuse to verify it. Grandfather is also here. I believe that he'll be able to distinguish between right and wrong. Stop talking, verify it. Old Master Chu Xiongcheng's face was also purple. No matter how stupid he was, he could tell at this moment. If they didn't test it, the Chu clan would probably be torn apart by the war today. Father! Chu Fei Long raised his head in shock and looked at his father. What are you shouting for? Chu Xiongcheng said angrily, isn't this all planned by you? You're still shouting here. He roared, call everyone here. I'll verify it myself. Chu Fei Long staggered back a few steps and fell onto the chair. Today, he had suffered a crushing defeat. Furthermore, the most aggrieved thing was that he had shot himself in the foot. Every time the other party retaliated, they used his own tactics. Every single one of his sharp words were exactly what he had just said. But when it was his turn, he felt 1,000 times worse. Because the other party had already verified his identity. It was perfectly justified. Grandfather, you're so wise. Chu Yang flattered loudly. He sneered in his heart, go against me? Bully my mother? Second brother Chu, this matter won't end so easily. I'll settle the scores with you for the past 18 years sooner or later. With a command, a few youths came in. They were the younger generation of the Chu clan. Second brother Chu Fei Long's 3 sons, Chu Dinghu, Chu Tingjiao and Chu Dingyun. Third brother Chu Feiyan's 2 sons, Chu Dingxiao and Chu Dingkong. Fourth brother Chu Fei Yan still didn't have any descendants. At this moment, these 5 youths were all aggrieved. Trouble would come from the sky if one had nothing to do. This saying was not false at all. They looked at Chu Yang, who was on the bed, and their gazes were as sharp as knives. Chu Yang was calm as usual. You little brats, Diwu Qingrou's army of 10 million has already been played to a pulp by me. What can you little brats do with a few glances? Yes, that square-faced and big-eared Chu Tinghu looks the same as Chu Fei Long. He's the eldest, and he's 18 years old? He's only 4 months younger than me. Chu Tingjiao, 17 years old, had a slanted face and looked very gloomy. Chu Tingyun, 15 years old, rolled his eyes back and forth. He's smart on the outside, but he's nothing to worry about. As for the 2 sons of his third uncle, the eldest one looked very loyal, while the second one was more lively. One was 17 years old, while the other was 13 years old. Chu Yang silently memorized the characteristics of these brothers. Minister Chu's photographic memory was not for nothing. As long as he wanted to remember someone, he could recognize him at a glance even if he only saw him once or after many years. As for the blood test, Chu Yang didn't want to do anything. He only did this to disgust Chu Fei Long and to vent his anger for his mother. As for the rest, he really didn't think about it. Besides, even if Chu Yang wanted to do something to the restrictions set up by Dukyu, he couldn't do anything now that the sword spirit was in a deep sleep. Not long after, the 5 youths finished the test. Although the jade pendant didn't emit a dazzling golden light like Chu Yang's, there was still a reflection. It was enough to show that they were the grandchildren of the Chu clan. Now it's clear. Chu Fei Long's chest heaved up and down as he shouted angrily. But there was no reply. Looking at Chu Yang, he almost spat out a mouthful of blood. Chu Yang had already closed his eyes, and his breathing was shallow. He had actually fallen asleep again. Chu Fei Long punched the air with all his strength. This feeling was almost enough to make him vomit blood. Chu Fei Long snorted angrily and left. I've really embarrassed myself today. I'm afraid that tomorrow, my scandal will start to spread in the upper 3 heavens. The youths all followed him out. Chu Fei Yen wiped off his cold sweat and also slipped out. I'd better stay away from this little ancestor for the time being. He's too scary. Nothing good will happen when I'm around him. I'm always on tenterhooks. Chu Xiongcheng sighed and didn't know what to say. At this moment, Chu Yang opened his eyes again. He happened to see Yang Ruolin and Chu Feiling looking at him with sparkling eyes. Their eyes were full of desire. He couldn't help but smile and said, "Big? What big?" Chu Feiling was anxious and sweated profusely. He hurriedly stopped him. "I'm your father." Chapter 739. What are you talking about? Chu Feiling was anxious and sweated profusely. He quickly shouted, "I'm your father." Chu Yang was speechless when he heard this. Old Master Chu Xiongcheng was stunned and confused. He didn't expect Chu Feiling to have such a reaction when he finally found his son who had been missing for 18 years. He stared and stuttered, "What's going on?" Yang Ruolin, who knew the inside story and knew why Chu Feiling had such a reaction, almost couldn't help but burst out laughing even though she was in such a state of agitation and worry about personal gains and losses. Chu Feiling's face turned red and he was tongue-tied. What about you?" Old Master Chu shouted, "Your son has been missing for 18 years and you're acting like this the moment he comes back. What's the meaning of this?" He turned to Chu Yang and said, "Don't be afraid, my dear grandson. Your father has such a bad temper. Grandpa will stand up for you." Chu Yang was surprised. After a long time, he said softly and uncertainly, "This, really, the Chu clan?" The 3 of them fainted when they heard this. Does this little ancestor think that this is a dream? They nodded, "Of course." Chu Yang took a deep breath. "Then, you're really my grandfather? Your father and mother?" The 3 of them smiled and nodded with tears in their eyes. His words made the 3 of them feel very sad. Chu Yang closed his eyes and finally opened them. Pinch me. I can't move." He wanted to sit up, but he still didn't have the strength. Yang Ruolin finally burst into tears. "Child?" She hugged him and burst into tears. Chu Yang felt his mother's tears slowly slide down and soak his chest. He felt a kind of indescribable bitterness in his heart. He muttered in a stupefied manner, "So, I'm not dreaming." Feeling his mother's embrace, Chu Yang's eyes slowly became moist. A feeling of weakness slowly rose in him. At this moment, the king of Hell Chu, who had experienced 2 lifetimes, actually felt an impulse to cry out loud. This weakness had nothing to do with courage or anything else. It was a feeling that could only be felt in front of a loved one. He was like a child, stubborn and proud. In the face of the storm of the world, he faced it alone, frowned coldly, and shouldered everything. When they were hurt, bullied, and in pain, all they could do was grit their teeth and smile coldly. But when she faced her parents, she couldn't help but cry. Even if he was smiling just a moment ago, when he suddenly saw the person closest to him, this kind of weakness and even grievance would suddenly surge up. Chu Yang quietly stayed in his mother's arms. He gritted his teeth and didn't want to cry. However, her eyes were sore, and her nose was sore. She couldn't help it, and 2 streams of tears slowly flowed out. Then, as if a floodgate had been opened, tears surged out. Chu Feiling and Chu Xiongqing had mixed feelings when they saw the mother and daughter hugging each other after being separated for 18 years. The 2 of them wanted to say a few words of consolation, but at the same time, they felt as if something was stuck in their throats. They couldn't speak, and it seemed as if they would burst into tears if they opened their mouths. After a long while, old Master Chu Xiongqing said in a hoarse voice, "Rulin, your child is back. Your crying is making your child feel bad. This is a joyous occasion, don't cry." Yang Rulin raised her head and saw that her son's chest was soaked by her tears. She couldn't help but feel embarrassed. She wanted to turn around and wipe her eyes, but she couldn't bear to let her eyes leave her son. She could only wipe them with the back of her hand. "This is your grandfather." Chu Feiling coughed and said, "Chu Yang, come and greet him." Chu Xiongqing also looked at Chu Yang expectantly. He said excitedly, "He's called Chu Yang? His name has always been Chu Yang?" "Yes." Chu Feiling nodded awkwardly. "Greetings, grandfather." Chu Yang lay on the bed and was also a little embarrassed. "I don't know why. I can't get up and I don't have the strength. I hope grandfather won't be offended." "Why would I be offended?" Chu Xiongqing stroked his beard and smiled. "It's good that you're back. As for your body, I'll find the best doctor in the upper 3 heavens. You'll definitely recover. Don't worry." Chu Yang responded softly. He looked at Chu Feiling. His lips moved for a long time, and even his face turned red. Chu Feiling looked at him nervously. He was afraid that this little bastard would call him Big Brother. If that happened, he would quickly dig a hole in the ground. "Father," Chu Yang finally called out softly. Chu Feiling's heart relaxed when he heard Chu Yang call out to his mother. He also felt as if a huge rock had been lifted off his chest. He smiled and said, "Good boy. That's your mother." Chu Yang's eyes turned and looked at Yang Rulin. Yang Rulin's body trembled. She looked at him nervously. Her eyes were filled with tears, but she didn't dare to blink. She forced the corners of her mouth to curl up. She wanted to show a gentle smile, but the sour feeling in her heart made it a little distorted. The more she tried to calm down, the more she couldn't maintain the expression on her face. Chu Yang smiled gently. His eyes looked deeply at Yang Rulin's face. His lips moved, but he closed them again. He forced himself to control himself, but his lips were already flattened in the end. His handsome face was also twisted strangely. His heartbeat was like a drum. It was as if his heart was about to shoot out from his mouth. He had never dreamed that he would be so weak. He couldn't even say a word. After a long time, "Mother!" Chu Yang finally called out. But his tone was different. His voice was thick, as if he was crying. Yang Rulin had been waiting for a long time. She hurriedly agreed. Tears flowed out of her eyes. Her body trembled violently. "Good boy. My good boy. My good boy." She choked. After a long time, she gasped for breath. She reached out and hugged her son. It was as if she wanted to rub her son into her body. She blinked desperately and gasped for breath. Finally, she said with a voice that sounded like crying and laughing, You finally came home," she cried and laughed without any manners. She hugged her son tightly. It was as if her son would disappear in the next moment. After a long time, Yang Rulin jumped up and grabbed Chu Feiling's hand. Feiling, did you hear that? My son called me mother." My son called me mother. I've been waiting for this for 10 years. I've been waiting for 10 years. I finally heard it. My son is back. He's back. He's back. Chu Feiling held her hand tightly and said emotionally, yes, yes, my son is back. Thinking of the suffering and worry that the couple had suffered in the past 10 years, he couldn't help but tear up. His heart was filled with mixed feelings. Chu Xiongqing turned his head slightly. 2 streams of tears fell from his eyes. After a long while, his emotional state started to weaken. Yang Ruolin was already sitting by the bed. Her fingers gently stroked her son's face and hair. Her face was full of satisfaction. Her eyes were still moist. She would sob from time to time, but she had already calmed down. Son, how have you been all these years? Yang Ruolin thought of Chu Yang's past that Wu Qianqian had told her. Her heart ached. All these years. Chu Yang smiled gently and said, all these years, it's been very peaceful. I didn't encounter any big problems. I grew up with my master. He's a very good person. He took care of me in every possible way. I didn't suffer any grievances. Everything went according to my temper. All these years were peaceful. Peaceful. Yang Ruolin couldn't help but want to cry again. She hurriedly held it in. She knew that her son was saying this to lessen the guilt in her heart. But, isn't it a little ridiculous to say that you've been peaceful? How many perilous situations have you faced? How many times have you escaped? He had overturned the entire situation of the lower 3 heavens with his insignificant cultivation level. How could the word dangerous be enough to describe this? How many dangers have you faced when you went deep into the enemy's hinterland, the capital of Great Zhao? How many dangers have you faced? You fled alone for 13,000 miles. You were hunted down by the entire nation. You were surrounded by a force that was thousands of times stronger than you. How tragic was that? Why didn't you say anything about this? The situation in the lower 3 heavens was turbulent. You led your brothers to battle at the Lake of Despair. That wasn't peaceful. You didn't say anything about it because you wanted me to feel at ease. Yang Ruolin felt that she was choking. She looked at her son's smiling face and tried hard to find traces of hardships on it. However, she was lost in her son's face. Good child. Yang Ruolin said dotingly, father and mother couldn't take care of you personally. You're still so handsome. Chu Feiling smiled and said, this won't change. You look like me. No matter where you grow up, you'll still be handsome. Shameless. Yang Ruolin smiled through her tears. She suddenly felt that something was missing. She asked, where's father? Chu Feiling said, he gave me his blessings to take care of you. He went to arrange for a doctor. He smiled and said, I saw him crying just now. He must be embarrassed in front of his daughter-in-law. He hurriedly left. He tried his best to make it sound humorous. Yang Ruolin and Chu Yang smiled at each other. They felt that the heavy and sorrowful atmosphere was gradually fading away. I thought you were the one who left first. You're the first deity to become sworn brothers with your own son. Yang Ruolin pouted and said mischievously. Now that there were only 3 of them left, Yang Ruolin naturally wouldn't give him any face. Ha! When he heard this, Chu Yang couldn't help but laugh. Yang Ruolin saw that her words had finally made her son happy. She couldn't help but smile. Her heart was filled with a sense of accomplishment. She felt as warm as when her son was just born. She hugged and rocked him in her arms to coax him not to cry. As she thought about it, she couldn't help but feel motherly love. The way she looked at her son also became gentler. She looked at him as if he was a rare treasure. No matter how she looked at him, she couldn't get enough of him. His eyebrows were handsome, his eyes were handsome, his face was perfect. Even the smell on his body was so fresh and pleasant. Chapter 740. Chu Yang said unjustly, I'm really being wronged. How would I dare to take advantage of you? You didn't give me any chance to explain. You forced me to kneel down before I agreed. Then, when I was about to stand up, you pressed my head down and smashed it on the ground. Stop talking. Chu Feiling's face was full of black lines. How can you blame me for this? Chu Yang muttered. If I don't blame you, Am I to blame? Chu Feiling looked at him majestically, trying to establish the dignity of a father. Why don't you let grandfather be the judge? Chu Yang didn't back down. Don't judge? You're making a fool out of me. Chu Feiling was finally discouraged. He had no choice but to raise the white flag. He admitted defeat. Haha. Yang Ruolin suddenly laughed. She was overjoyed. Then, the whole family chattered a lot at Chu Yang's bedside. This was especially so for Yang Ruolin. She forced Chu Yang to recount everything that had happened since he was young. Chu Yang was helpless. He could only choose his words carefully, fearing that he would say something sensitive. He could see that his mother was emotionally fragile. Chu Feiling rolled his eyes as he listened. Yang Ruolin was very persistent, especially when it came to dangerous and injured situations. Chu Yang was obviously unwilling to talk about it, or simply skipped over it. But Yang Ruolin always wanted to get to the bottom of it. Then she forced the truth out of Chu Yang's mouth bit by bit. Then she cried guiltily. Then, it was the same for the next matter. Chu Feiling couldn't understand it at all. My pain isn't much less than yours, but it's really inconceivable that you have to make your son speak and cry like this. Thinking, he suddenly thought of something and said, Chu Yang, now that you've acknowledged your ancestors and returned to the clan, look at your name. Is it according to the family genealogy? Family genealogy? Chu Yang was stunned. Yes, when it comes to your generation, it happens to be the Ting generation. Chu Feiling said, our Chu clan's order of seniority is usually based on one character. I'm from the Fei generation. Heroes soar, glory for 1,000 years. Working together, honor the clan. Ting generation? Chu Yang frowned. What is this called? You just need to add one word. Chu Tingyang. Chu Feiling said gently. Chu Tingyang? Chu Yang's face darkened. Must it be painful? I don't want pain anymore. Chu Feiling frowned and wanted to scold him. Chu Yang rolled his eyes. I don't want to be in pain anymore. I've been in pain for 18 years. Yang Ruolan's heart ached. She hastily said, then don't call him Teng. Just call him Chu Yang. Don't worry, Mom will help you. Mom, you are a good person. Chu Yang lay down contentedly. Chu Feiling's face darkened. This is the ancestral rule. The rules of the ancestors are also set by people. Yang Ruolan argued irrationally. In any case, Chu Yang is the best. Don't jump. Whoever wants to feel pain can feel the pain. Chu Yang blinked and revealed a heavy expression. He said, this name was given to me by my master. My master's kindness to me is as heavy as a mountain. Moreover, this name contains the most important wish of my master's life. I really don't want to change it. Chu Feiling breathed a sigh of relief and said, I see. Since you don't want to change it, I'll go and talk to my father. Your master has nurtured you and taught you. We must not be ungrateful. When we meet, I'll definitely give him a toast. Chu Yang breathed a sigh of relief. To be honest, he really didn't like the name Chu Tingyang at all. Even if you don't change your fate, you still need a nickname, right? Chu Feiling touched his chin and said, how about Ting Ting? This way, you'll have seniority. Ting Ting? Chu Yang was stunned. He looked at Chu Feiling in horror and couldn't speak for a long time. Before he spoke, Yang Ruolan exploded. What Ting Ting? Chu Feiling. Shut the hell up. My son's name will be Chu Yang. His nickname will be Yang Yang. He's my son. I'll call the shots. Chu Feiling's face darkened. If you call me your son, you'll have to call me an elder. Yang Ruolan glared at him and said, do you have the right to speak? Chu Feiling wanted to cry but had no tears. At this moment, a voice said, what elder? It was Master Chu Xiongqing, who was dragging an old man with a white beard. He strode in. It was the #1 doctor in the Chu clan, Dr. Chiu. Chu Feiling was scared out of his wits. He hurriedly greeted him. Cough cough, elder. That means, cough cough in our Chu clan, this child has a lot of elders. He has to know the rules in the future. Cough cough. Master Chu Xiongqing didn't bother to listen to his explanation. He responded casually and said, I see. Then he urged Dr. Chiu to treat his grandson. Chu Feiling secretly wiped away his cold sweat and sat down on the chair. He suddenly felt that there was a volcano under his, but the kind that could erupt at any time. This day, he couldn't live on. Dr. Chiu put his fingers on Chu Yang's pulse and frowned. It's a little strange. Why is there such a pulse? What's wrong? Chu Feiling, Chu Xiongqing and Yang Ruolan asked at the same time. The pulse is a little strange. Dr. Chiu frowned and frowned. I've never seen this before. Is it good or bad? Master Chu Xiongqing hurriedly interrupted and thought, could it be that our Chu clan has another genius? This young master's meridians seem to have some elemental energy, and it's quite a lot. This shows that young master was very diligent in his cultivation. Dr. Chiu pursed his lips and didn't know how to continue. What's next? Master Chu's eyes were fervent. But I don't know why, but he's injured. It seems that his meridians have been restrained. There's a break point in his meridians. Dr. Chiu frowned. In other words, his cultivation has been destroyed. His cultivation has been destroyed. This sentence was really shocking. Chu Xiongqing, Chu Feiling and Yang Ruolan exclaimed at the same time. Divine Physician Chiu's expression was grave. If I'm not mistaken, young master must have offended some powerful cultivator, and this powerful cultivator must have placed a seal under young master's meridians. After a few days of rest, he'll be able to move freely. But if he wants to improve his cultivation, I'm afraid it'll be difficult. Let me see. Master Chu couldn't wait and grabbed Chu Yang's wrist. His monarch-level elemental energy surged into his meridians. His brows furrowed tighter and tighter, and his expression became more and more unpleasant. That's right, Chu Yang's meridians and vital energy were very dense. It was even far beyond the normal level that he could reach at his age. He could be said to be a super genius. But there were a few inexplicable obstructions in his meridians that prevented his elemental energy from flowing. With his monarch-level strength, it was as if he was facing a steel mountain. He didn't waver at all. Who did you offend? Who did this? Master Chu couldn't figure it out. Since this person was able to set up such a restriction, if he wanted to kill Chu Yang, he could do it thousands of times with a flip of his hand. Why did he spend so much effort to restrain Chu Yang's body? I don't know either. Chu Yang looked innocent. You're right. You won't be able to detect it even if you want to. Chu Xiongqing sighed and said, I'll ask the elder to take a look at you when he comes out of seclusion. After that, he stood up and said, Fei Ling, tell the child about our clan. Let him rest for the next few days. When the elder comes out of seclusion, I'll report to him. I'll go to the Medicine Valley personally. Yes, Chu Fei Ling said worriedly. Yang Ruolin grabbed Chu Yang's hand and comforted him. Yang, don't be afraid. Don't be depressed. You'll be fine. Chu Yang said, I'm not worried. Of course, he wasn't worried. Chu Yang was well aware of the situation in his body. This was clearly a temporary disorder caused by the overflowing of elemental energy and spirit. It wasn't a big deal at all. He just needed some time to straighten it out and everything would return to normal. But this matter was really hard to explain. How could he explain? Could he say that he was the Tribulation Sword Master and that he had swallowed the spirit of the first Tribulation Sword Master? If that was the case, Chu Yang reckoned that the elder would faint immediately. 2 days passed in the blink of an eye. In these 2 days, Yang Ruolin didn't leave her son's side at all. She took care of him tirelessly. Finally, on the morning of the 3rd day, although Chu Yang's body was still weak, he could get out of bed with his own strength. He stood up and walked around the courtyard. Chu Yang regained the ability to move on this day. All his strength was accumulated in his meridians and consciousness. Although Chu Yang's body didn't have any strength now, his spirit was becoming more solid day by day. If the spirit of an ordinary person was a light smoke, then the spirit of an expert was a piece of white paper with a shape. The spirit of a super expert was like a towering tree. And now, Chu Yang's divine soul was already a verdant little tree that was growing healthily. And his spirit tree was different from other trees. Compared to an ordinary expert, his spirit tree was a golden crystal jade sandalwood. Golden crystal jade sandalwood was the toughest tree in the heavenly continent. This tree only existed in legends. It was said that it could even withstand the attack of a supreme martial artist. And in these few days, Chu Yang understood the situation of the Chu clan thoroughly. There were two mysterious elders in the Chu clan who were in seclusion all year round. His grandfather, Chu Xiongqing, had two brothers. But his second brother, Chu Xiongwei, went missing when he was in his prime. No one knew if he was alive or dead. Below them were his father's generation. The four brothers were Chu Feiling, Chu Feilong, Chu Feian and Chu Fian. Together, they were a homonym of exquisite smoke. Chu Yang didn't know if there was a meaning behind this. In his generation, Chu Feilong had 3 sons, Chu Feian had 2 sons and 1 daughter, and Chu Fian had 1 daughter. It seemed that Chu Feian's daughter, Chu Lu, was born with a chronic illness. Chu Feian spent most of his time outside looking for medicine and was rarely at home. The Chu clan was located in the flat mountain ridge in the southeast corner of the upper 3 heavens. It was one of the 3 big clans there. The Chu clan's strength wasn't considered a super clan in the upper 3 heavens. It was barely considered a small clan that could establish itself. Chu Yang once asked about the wind-thunder platform intentionally, because in his previous life, he received the summon of the 5th fragment of the Calamity Sword at the wind-thunder platform. But Chu Feiling's answer made Chu Yang smile bitterly. The wind-thunder platform was located in the northwest of the upper 3 heavens. It was extremely desolate. It was more than 37,000 miles away from his current location. Chapter 741. The situation in the upper 3 heavens was complicated. The Chu clan was content to stay in one corner, but there were also constant conflicts in the open and in the dark. The current strength of the Chu clan was basically in the hands of the clan master. The high-level experts were basically the seniors of the Chu clan. They were all in seclusion when they had nothing to do. The other 2 big clans in the flat mountain ridge, the Bao clan and the Liao clan, were slightly weaker than the Chu clan, but not by much. The 2 clans were abnormally strong. Small frictions and conflicts happened every day. And this flat mountain ridge and the entire southeast area after the flat mountain ridge belonged to the Shao clan, one of the big dominant clans. There were dragons and crouching tigers, strange people and sections. They were fighting for the chance to survive in the cruel survival of the fittest. A piece of land in the east, a Shao in the southeast, 10,000 miles of waves in the west. These were the clans, Shao clan and Qin clan. Shocking stones in the northwest, proud Ling clan in the southwest, fragrant orchids in the south. These were the Shi clan, Ling clan and Lan clan. Sharp swords in the north, mighty Zhuge clan in the south. These were the Li clan, Zhuge clan and Yi clan. These were the big dominant clans in the upper 3 heavens. The big clans each dominated a region. In the recent thousands of years, there were always some clans that emerged to fight for power and territory. Some clans even wanted to be independent and not be controlled by the big clans. Some clans even wanted to replace the big clans. These clans, without exception, were all annihilated. But it could also be seen that the big clans' control over the upper 3 heavens was not as good as before. The upper 3 heavens had been around for tens of thousands of years. Naturally, not everyone in the upper 3 heavens was a cultivator. There were more ordinary people. So, the basic necessities here could still be settled with gold and silver. But as long as it involved the business of the big clans, it was a different situation. In the group of cultivators, they used spiritual energy to pave the way and crystal stones as currency to buy or exchange the items they wanted. Crystal stones were not only a currency, but also a source of spiritual energy for cultivation. Purple crystal, black crystal, red crystal, blue crystal and white crystal. 1 purple crystal was equivalent to 10 black crystals, 1 black crystal was equivalent to 10 red crystals, and so on. 1 purple crystal that was circulated by the government was equivalent to 10,000 white crystals. This was the ratio. King of Hell Chu felt that he was a pauper. He had never felt so poor before. After accepting Duke Yu's white crystal ores, other than absorbing them, he also stored 7,000 to 8,000 pieces in his tribulation space. He had originally thought that this was a very, very large sum of wealth. Who would have thought that it was actually not even enough to exchange for a single purple crystal? As for the mountains of gold and silver in the space, King of Hell Chu sighed. I'll donate those to the clan in a few days. Letting the clan steward use it to do business with ordinary people, he really had no use for it. Motherfucker, I've been in the lower three heavens for half a lifetime. Everyone in the lower three heavens is either afraid of me or admiring me. I can also command a region in the lower three heavens. I didn't expect that I would become a small shrimp in the upper three heavens. Moreover, I'm a poor shrimp. In his previous life, although Chu Yang had reached the upper three heavens, he had only been a mere revered martial artist. He had taken a huge risk before he finally found an unknown channel and went straight to the Wind Thunder platform. They had to eat and sleep in the open along the way. They had to hide from place to place. When they finally arrived, they were immediately killed by Mo Tianji and his people. It could be said that he knew nothing about Wu Santian. For the current Chu Yang, even though he had the experience of 2 lifetimes, this upper three heavens was still a completely unfamiliar world. Especially the big dominant clans that ruled the upper three heavens. Almost every clan had their own rules and taboos in their territory. In this way, the chances of conflict in the Jianghu would increase by 100 times. Not to mention that other than the big clans, in such a vast area like the upper three heavens, there were many different forces. And any one of these forces was not something that the current Chu Yang could afford to offend. Everything was completely different from the lower three heavens and the upper three heavens. Whether it was the customs or the ways of the Jianghu, they were all completely different. When Chu Yang had just finished listening, he was actually a little stunned. He remembered a sentence that Duke Yu and Diwu Qingro had said before. Actually, these are really nothing. Now that he thought about it, these words were really reasonable. The reason why Diwu Qingro admitted defeat so easily and did him a big favor while he himself obtained great luck was because in his heart, these are really nothing. Indeed, they are nothing. Compared to the colorful world of the upper three heavens, the lower three heavens and the upper three heavens were like child's play. As for the so-called experts of the upper three heavens and the lower three heavens, in the vast world of the upper three heavens, they were even less than a fart. Chu Yang had a feeling. I am a pauper, but I came to a world full of millionaires. What made him the most speechless was that the millionaires in his eyes were still at the lowest level here. He was like a beggar who suddenly came to a state banquet. There was a dazzling lineup, but it could not hide the confusion in his heart. What should I do? At night, Chu Yang lay on the bed, unable to fall asleep for a long time. Finally, he gritted his teeth and thought, what am I, Chu Yang, afraid of? Didn't I come from beyond the heavens sect as a commoner? What am I afraid of? Didn't I still become the hegemony of Iron Cloud? When I first came to the upper three heavens, wasn't I alone and unarmed? In the end, didn't I overturn the entire upper three heavens? The upper three heavens is just a little bigger. That's all. He encouraged himself, and then began to plan what to do next. It was impossible to find the 5th fragment of the Tribulation Sword in a short time. He could only establish a foothold in the clan, then build up the clan and develop it step by step. When he was strong enough and met the standards of the 5th fragment, he could go and find it. Before that, he could not let anyone find out about his identity. Therefore, he had to abandon everything in the past. Everything had to start from the beginning. I am a pauper now. I have to put myself at the lowest level of the entire world, then climb up step by step. As long as I have the slightest arrogance, I am afraid I will die without a burial place. Chu Yang slowly made up his mind, and his heart slowly calmed down. His identity as King of Hell Chu could not be mentioned again. He was an abandoned child that his parents found with great difficulty. As for his origin, he might as well use his brain. The name King of Hell Chu was famous in the lower three heavens, but there were very few people in the upper three heavens who would pay attention to it. In a huge world like the upper three heavens, there was probably no one who would put King of Hell Chu in their eyes. If he wanted to hide, he had a great chance. After a period of silence, he could slowly appear again. Then, no one would associate him with the Tribulation Sword Master. Thinking of this, Chu Yang suddenly realized that divine Dr. Chiu's diagnosis of his cultivation being crippled was actually the best amulet in his current situation. Yes, old Wu was crippled. Old Wu had to cultivate from the beginning. Have you ever seen a tribulation sword master being crippled? Is this a joke? With this layer of protection, whatever he did would not attract much attention. If he secretly recovered his strength, not only could he protect himself, but more importantly, he could also trick people. Of course, during this period of time, he could not avoid seeking medical treatment. Although it was a little troublesome for the clan, Chu Fei Long was now in charge. This old man had always been eyeing the three of them covetously. I will let him run errands for me. Of course, mother would also be worried. I will accompany her and coax her during this period of time, and everything will be fine. When I recover my cultivation and gradually rise up, I will treat it as compensation for her. Mother, one day I will let you be proud of me. To manage external affairs, one must first settle internal affairs. The Chu family must be forged into a solid block of iron as the first step. Otherwise, with such a huge burden and concern here, he would be played to death by the big clans, and the rise of the clan depended on strength and wealth. Strength was martial power. Wealth was motherfucker's crystal stones. Minister Chu gritted his teeth. Even if old Wu had to cheat and steal, he would still become the richest person in the heavens. Motherfucker. You're so insidious. A voice sounded a little tired. Chu Yang was stunned. His divine sense entered the space of his consciousness, and he could not help but be surprised. You're awake. The one who spoke was the sword spirit. Your divine sense has been fixed forever. How can I not wake up? The sword spirit smiled bitterly. You're in the upper three heavens? Chu Yang nodded honestly. You're too weak now. So, your plan just now is completely feasible. The sword spirit pondered for a while and said, I basically agree with your approach and plan. Making a fortune quietly is the way of a king. He paused and reminded, I'm already awake now. I'll be able to recover in 3 days at most. In another half a month, I'll have the cultivation of the 4th fragment of the tribulation sword. Moreover, your divine sense has been fixed forever. Now that I'm in your body, there's no harm to your divine sense. So, if you're in absolute danger, or if you need to kill all of them, just call me out. He smiled ferociously. After 10,000 years, I can't wait to see what the experts of the upper three heavens are like now. Chu Yang smiled deeply. Don't worry, there'll be plenty of opportunities for you to make a move. The sword spirit smiled knowingly. A murderous aura reverberated back and forth in the tribulation space, as if a demon that had been suppressed for 10,000 years was showing its ferocious fangs. Chu Feiling and Yang Rilin were also sleepless that night when Chu Yang was making his plans. Say, what should we do about that? Yang Rilin frowned. There's nothing we can do. Chu Feiling sighed and lay beside his wife, somewhat absent-minded. Ever since his son went missing, he had been deprived of the right to share a bed with his wife. These few days, he had finally received the emperor's grace. Chu Feiling felt that the bitterness was over and the sweetness was about to come. There's nothing we can do? Yang Ruolin raised her eyebrows. Is my grandson going to stay in the lower three heavens like this? Then what do you want? Chu Feiling said innocently. Firstly, your junior sister begged us not to tell him. We have to worry about this, don't we? If we fall out, she won't even let you see your grandson. That'll be really bad. Secondly, Yang has lost his cultivation and his meridians have been destroyed. Although he's forcing a smile every day to make us happy, we're all martial artists. How can we not know this feeling? If we mention this now, won't we only make him sad and worried, but we can't do anything about it? Won't this be torture? Alas. Yang Ruolin sighed. She was upset and her heart was in a mess. After Chu Feiling finished speaking, he saw that his wife was no longer speaking, so he felt relieved. He leaned towards his wife and said gently, Let's sleep. Yang Ruolin was anxious and had no mood to think. She shouted angrily, Get out. She stomped her foot. With a thud, Chu Feiling flew out of the bed and sat on the ground. He wanted to cry but had no tears. Chapter 742. The next morning, Chu Yang told Chu Feiling about his plans. Chu Feiling was worried that if Chu Yang's identity was made public, it would cause unnecessary trouble. Moreover, people would use this as an excuse to attack him. Now that he heard Chu Yang's suggestion, it was exactly what he wanted and he agreed. He discussed a plan with his wife. When he was traveling in the three heavens, he accidentally found the purple crystal jade essence and then realized that it was his son. The whole family discussed this matter peacefully for a long time. After settling this matter, everyone felt as if a burden had been lifted from their minds. "Father, you don't look too good." Chu Yang realized that Chu Feiling's face was a little pale and his eyes were a little red. He looked a little dispirited. Sigh. It's a long story. How could Chu Feiling tell his son about his shameful past? He said vaguely. Yang Ruolan blushed and looked at Chu Feiling. She was a little embarrassed. How could she not understand that Chu Feiling had been deprived of his right to do that when he was in his prime? And until now, he had never been a womanizer for 18 years. Such a man was a rare and responsible man even in the entire heavens world. Not to mention his cultivation, tolerance, and other aspects, just this point alone was enough to make anyone admire him. She thought, if there's no harm in it, as she thought about it, her face blushed even more. Chu Yang saw that his parents' expressions became awkward and he couldn't help but laugh. He winked and said meaningfully, I know. Chu Feiling and Yang Ruolan slapped him and reprimanded him in unison. What do you know? Chu Yang staggered from the slap. At this moment, Old Master Chu Xiongqing sent someone to report that he had invited a doctor and was about to come. These few days, Old Master had been coming here several times a day. It was obvious that he was very concerned. As for the doctors he had brought, there were more than 10 of them. Each of them was called a divine doctor in the local area. But after a long time, there was no effect. The miraculous doctors had all come with great ambitions and left dejectedly. Gradually, Chu Feiling and his wife lost all hope. After a while, Old Master came with a divine doctor. After a round of examination, he still left without any solution. The Old Master stayed behind. He didn't say anything and just sighed. The Old Master was worried about the Chu family's inheritance. This was a huge matter. Throughout history, the inheritance of aristocratic families was passed down to the elders and not to the young. It was to prevent brothers from killing each other. However, in Chu Feiling's generation, there was a problem. Originally, Chu Feiling's ability was more than enough to take over the position of clan master. However, she had strangely lost her own son, and since then she had never had another child. In that case, there would be no successor. Besides, Chu Feiling had been depressed ever since he lost his son. He only cared about finding a son to comfort his wife, and he didn't pay much attention to the family affairs. Old Master had no choice but to let Chu Feilong take over. I didn't expect that Chu Feilong's scheming methods were not inferior to Chu Feiling's. In fact, he was even better than Chu Feiling. He managed the entire Chu clan in an orderly manner, and it was thriving day by day. As a result, Old Master Chu began to mutter in his heart. Over the years, Chu Feilong's position had been confirmed. But he didn't expect that Chu Feilong would be found. This made Old Master ecstatic, but he was completely conflicted. Then he saw that Sun Imo had a fight with his second uncle the moment he woke up, and even gained the upper hand. Old Master's heart began to move again. This fellow is definitely not a well-behaved fellow. If the position was passed to Chu Feilong, this fellow would definitely turn the Chu clan upside down in a few years' time. Therefore, Old Master had the idea of passing the position down to the elders. But, just as he had this idea, he heard that Sun Nemo had been crippled. Old Master, who had just come out of a volcano, was suddenly thrown into an ice cave. This emotional journey was like riding a roller coaster. It was simply unbearable. Fortunately, Old Master didn't have a heart disease. Otherwise, his illness would have already acted up. Old Master held on to the slightest hope that Sun Nemo could be cured. He kept looking for divine doctors to treat Sun Nemo so that he could be cured quickly, but he didn't expect the divine doctors to shake their heads and stare. They were helpless. There was no need to mention how awkward Old Master's heart was. He shook his head and sighed for a while. Then, he sat down and comforted Chu Yang. What kind of eloquence did Minister Chu have? With just a few words, he managed to coax Old Master into a happy mood. Old Master squinted his eyes and stroked his beard. He felt that this son Imo was really to his liking. Smart, resourceful, and scheming. Once son Imo was cured, he would also have strength. Where could he find such a successor to the clan? But on the surface, he still kept a straight face and said, "Don't give me that. You only know how to flatter me." Chu Yang's face was full of admiration. He spread out his hands and said helplessly, "Look, if it was an ordinary person, he would have fainted. Only grandfather is so wise. You can tell that I'm flattering you at a glance. This really makes me feel a little defeated. Sigh, there are so many wise people in the heavens, but how many of them are deceived by others? It's impossible for second grandfather. Grandfather's eyes are like torches. He can see through everything. He's quick-witted and vigorous even though he's old. He saw through my thoughts clearly." Facing such a wise grandfather, flattery will definitely not work. I can only tell the truth in the future. Old Master's back straightened even more. He squinted his eyes and stroked his beard. He smiled deeply and said, "That's right. How can I be coaxed by a few words from a brat like you? Grandfather is so wise. I'm also experienced and knowledgeable. I've never seen a powerful person as clear-headed as you." Minister Chu said from the bottom of his heart. "These words are reasonable. How can those vulgar people be compared to me?" Old Master crossed his legs. He looked like he was floating in the air. Chu Yang once again threw out one flattery after another, as if it was free of charge. Master accepted all of them. Yang Ruolan and Chu Fei Ling sat on one side in a daze. They only felt goosebumps all over their bodies. Their whole body was alternating between hot and cold. They looked at the shameless grandfather and grandson in disbelief. They only felt dizzy. Their father, who had always been majestic, would fly into a rage when he saw others flattering him. Now, he was more dizzy than anyone else? This well-behaved son, who looked upright, was now crazily flattering him. He said it so sincerely and innocently, the husband and wife only felt that they couldn't understand the ways of the world. After a long time, when Minister Chu's mouth was about to dry up, the old master finally stood up and said, "You guys chat, huh? My good grandson, you're really a good and considerate child. Grandpa will come and talk to you when he has time." Then, as if he was riding the clouds and riding the mist, he floated out of the room. He thought to himself, "Looks like it won't be too late to look at the inheritance later." Chu Yang wiped his sweat and said, "That's amazing. Old Master's tolerance is too strong. An ordinary person would probably be blushing after being flattered by me for a third of the time." Old Master's face didn't even turn red from the beginning to the end. Yang Ruolan and Chu Fei Ling looked at each other. They were speechless, like two ducks who were struck dumb by lightning. In the afternoon, everyone in the Chu clan knelt down and kowtowed under the leadership of Chu Xiongcheng. Then, Chu Yang went forward and kowtowed to the ancestors one by one. The whole process was solemn and solemn. This announced that the eldest grandson of the Chu clan had finally returned. Minister Chu's face was solemn and he muttered in his heart, Chu Yang, who had been surnamed Chu for 10 years, was finally considered a member of the Chu clan today. Then, Old Master Chu Xiongcheng announced in public, Chu Yang was officially recognized as the eldest grandson of the Chu clan. From today onwards, Chu Yang's monthly salary would be distributed according to the standard of a direct descendant. Every month, he would receive 2 blue crystals and 50 white crystals. In addition, he would receive 500 taels of silver and 20 taels of gold for daily needs. When this decision was made, no one had any objections. Even Chu Fei Long, who was angered by Chu Yang to the point of vomiting blood, seemed to have returned to normal today. He had a warm smile on his face and a graceful demeanor. The way he looked at Chu Yang was also filled with warmth. It was as if nothing had happened. This was his favorite nephew. Even with Chu Yang's scheming mind, he couldn't help but be shocked. Chu Fei Long's scheming mind was indeed not to be underestimated. After suffering such humiliation, he actually acted as if nothing had happened. Such a smiling tiger was the most difficult to deal with. Then, it was time to greet the elders of the clan. Without exception, everyone gave a red packet. Chu Fei Long handed over a red packet and laughed heartily. Naturally, Chu Yang was also respectful, friendly, and full of childlike feelings. This scene caused everyone in the hall to exclaim in admiration. The Chu clan's culture is indeed harmonious. Only old Master Chu Xiongcheng, Chu Fei Yen and Chu Fei Ling saw this scene and couldn't help but feel a chill in their hearts. This pair of uncle and nephew, if they didn't handle it well, the entire Chu clan would definitely be in a bloodbath. When Chu Yang met his fourth uncle Chu Fei Yen, the red packet he gave him was especially heavy. Chu Yang raised his head and saw a face full of anxiety and pleading. This face was very familiar. Chu Yang's heart skipped a beat. He smiled and greeted his fourth uncle, but didn't say anything. Chu Fian was greatly relieved. He laughed heartily and patted Chu Yang's shoulder. "What a great nephew. You're really talented, elegant, and handsome. I'll look for you in a while. Let's get to know each other better as uncle." Chu Yang smiled and agreed. Everyone's jaws dropped to the ground. Fourth brother is the punching bag of the entire clan. He's always so inflexible, as if everyone owes him a lot of money. When did he become so enthusiastic? Look at all the praises. His nephew whom he had just met had been praised to the point of being a flower. Chu Fei Long's eyes flashed, and he glanced at Chu Fei Yen intentionally. Then, a few brothers came up to greet Chu Yang. Chu Tinghu came up first and stared at Chu Yang for a while before he finally greeted, "Big brother." "You may dispense with the formalities," Chu Yang said in an ostentatious manner. Chu Tinghu smiled and stepped aside. Chu Yang muttered in his heart, "Just like me, he's also a smiling tiger. However, his skills are still too low." Chapter 743. The few little brothers came up to greet him one by one. Chu Yang also received them with a smile. Then two little Lolas walked over. "This is your third uncle's daughter. This is your fourth uncle's daughter, Xiao Xiao." Yang Ruolin's eyes were full of pity. Chu Yang took a look and saw that Chu Lu was only 11 or 12 years old while Chu Xiao Xiao was only 5 years old. Chu Xiao Xiao was adorable and innocent. She took Chu Yang's red packet and jumped with joy. Her big eyes narrowed into crescents. As for Chu Lu, Chu Yang didn't know what to say. Her hair was a little yellow and her eyes were lifeless. She was frighteningly thin. Light green blood vessels were clearly visible on her fair skin. It was just a few steps, but she actually walked for a while. She was so tired that she was panting. She almost fainted when she bent down. Chu Yang hurriedly supported her and said, "You don't have to be so polite." Then he asked, "Sister Lu, are you feeling unwell?" Chu Lu smiled bleakly and said, "I'm fine. Don't worry." Chu Yang was about to ask when Yang Ruolin secretly gave him a look. Chu Yang could only swallow the question back into his stomach. A beautiful woman came out and carefully helped Chu Lu back. Her face was full of sorrow. Chu Yang looked at Chu Lu's back and was in a daze. Although Chu Lu was young, there was already a sense of despair in her eyes. Moreover, whether it was her expression or her aura, it was very similar to Emo Qingwu's expression when she was rejected by him in his previous life. It was a feeling of utter despair and despair, a feeling of sadness and sadness. Chu Yang's heart couldn't help but ache. On the way back, Yang Ruolin sighed and said, "Her life is too hard. She's such a lovable little girl, but she contracted such a strange disease." "Strange disease?" Chu Yang asked. Yang Ruolin said, "When your third aunt was pregnant with Lu, she was ambushed on the road and fought with them. Her fetus was hurt. At that time, no one thought much of it. But after Lu was born, she had a high fever and cried all night. It was only later that we got a doctor to take a look that we found out that the fetus was finally affected." Congenital deficiency. Yang Ruolan remained silent for a while. Then she said these words, "But if it was a simple congenital deficiency, it wouldn't be so serious." During this time, Chu Yang had been trying his best to digest the memories of the first-generation Tribulation Sword Master. Among them, there were medical skills. In addition, he was not unfamiliar with medical skills. Ever since he received the medical books from Du Shiqing, his attainments were already extraordinary. Naturally, he could tell that Yang Ruolan was hiding something from him. Congenital deficiency? Yes, she suffered a concussion in her mother's womb. I don't know what happened, but she injured her head. Every day, he would have a headache and his entire body would convulse and roll around in pain. Sometimes, she would suddenly fall into a coma for a long time. Usually, she would be very sleepy. Such a good little girl, to be tormented by this strange illness, sigh. Yang Ruolan let out a long sigh. There are so many divine doctors, is there really no way? Chu Yang frowned. There's nothing I can do. Yang Ruolan said a little angrily, those bunch of quacks didn't even find the cause of the illness. They could only see the child in pain but couldn't do anything. They didn't even have a way to reduce the child's pain. They could only watch the child continue to suffer. Sigh, for this child's illness, your third uncle has been out searching for elixirs all year round. He would only come home once when he found one. Your third aunt is younger than me this year. It looks like she's already much older than me. Even when her illness doesn't act up, she still has headaches. When it acts up, it's only 10 times worse. In other words, is 11 years old this year. For the past 11 years, she has been in pain almost all the time. So that's how it is, Chu Yang said, and frowned. No wonder Chu Lu had that kind of expression. She had been enduring this kind of pain all the time. She had already endured it for as long as her life was long. Chu Yang sighed deeply in his heart. How could this kind of pain be endured by a little girl who was like a flower? But not only did Chu Lu endure it, she had already endured it for 11 years. How did she endure it for 11 years? Would heavy pills be effective for this kind of illness? Normal heavy pills won't be effective, the sword spirit said in his consciousness. This illness is congenital. Her meridians are congenitally blocked and twisted. In her brain, there's also an extremely fine kind of damage. Normal medicines won't work at all. Normal medicines won't work? Chu Yang pondered and said, that means there's still a way. Yes, but this method is also quite difficult. It needs to be gathered together before it can be treated, the sword spirit said. Gathered together? Chu Yang asked. Gathered together means absolute vine, colored lotus, single flower, jade clover ganoderma, life pangolin, lifeless death water, heavenly jade elixir, earth een soul ginseng, together with the ingredients for heavy pills and other rare herbs, to refine 3 special incomplete heavy pills. Only by taking 1 pill every month can the illness be completely cured. The sword spirit's words made Chu Yang suck in a breath of cold air. Not to mention how difficult it was to find these 8 herbs, just their medicinal power alone was enough to shock people. Other than the jade clover ganoderma and heavenly jade elixir, the rest were all highly toxic. And all of them were top-class poisons in the world. It was one of the 10 most toxic poisons in the heavenly layer. When these poisons were mixed together, even a supreme martial artist would be poisoned to death. Now, they were actually used to treat a little girl who was like a flower? It's the limit. Life also means death. Only between life and death can one come back from the dead. Your sister's life is already on the verge of extinction. And it's a congenital illness that's even more difficult to treat. That's why it needs to be gathered together. The sword spirit said, if she can't be treated within 2 years, I'm afraid. 2 years. Chu Yang's eyes flickered. Some of these medicines should be able to be bought. Is there a way to temporarily reduce her pain? Not to give her a headache? Chu Yang asked. The sword spirit hesitated and said, for the time being, there shouldn't be, unless I personally use the power of my 10,000-year spirit to suppress it for her. However, it can only be suppressed for 3 months at a time. After 3 months, it needs to be suppressed again. Chu Yang said, that's best. Why don't you suppress it for her? The sword spirit rolled his eyes. Do you know that if the medicinal ingredients aren't found after 2 years, she won't be able to hold on? And if I suppress it for her at that time, I can suppress it for another 2 years. In other words, I can extend her lifespan by 2 years. And if I suppress it for her now, I can only suppress it for 2 years at the longest. After 2 years, if the medicinal ingredients aren't found, even the gods won't be able to save her. Why only 2 years? Chu Yang was puzzled. Because her lifespan is only 2 years. So I can only suppress it for 2 years. Even if I don't suppress it now, I have to leave my spirit power for when her life is extinguished 2 years later. Suppress it. In other words, after I see her, there's only 2 years left. The sword spirit said, "You decide what to do. Anyway, this doesn't cost me anything. Even if I suppress it, I won't use much of my spirit power. Besides, your spirit is eternally stable now, which has also caused my spirit to be eternally stable. I don't care." "You don't care, but I do." Chu Yang was conflicted. Of course, he didn't care about the spirit power. What he cared about was, if he couldn't find the medicinal ingredients in 2 years, what would he do? He sighed and couldn't make up his mind. As soon as he returned to his parents' courtyard, he was informed that his fourth uncle, Chu Fian, had come to visit. Chu Yang's spirits were lifted. "Invite him in." Chu Fian sneaked in sneakily and laughed dryly. "Big brother, sister-in-law, eldest nephew, you're all here." "Ha!" Chu Failing frowned. Yang Rulin was dumbfounded. "Fourth brother, are you sick?" Chu Failing frowned and looked at his fourth brother with dissatisfaction. "You're an old man with children. How can you be so undignified in front of the younger generation?" Chu Fian nodded his head and bowed as he agreed. He thought to himself, "My sins are now in your son's hands. If he says anything, I'll be beaten to a pulp. How can I still act like an elder? Big brother, sister-in-law? Shouldn't you leave for a while?" Chu Fian laughed. "I have something to discuss with eldest nephew." "Something to discuss? You know each other?" Yang Rulin looked at Chu Fian suspiciously. Chu Fian immediately broke out in a cold sweat and shook his head like a rattledrum. "I don't know him." "If you don't know him, why are you talking to him?" Yang Rulin scrutinized him. "I'll play." Large beads of sweat dripped from Chu Fian's forehead. "Can I talk to him for fun?" Chu Failing and Yang Rulin were speechless. They suddenly felt that the whole family seemed to be different since our son came back. "What's going on?" "I'm talking to your son. It's inconvenient for the two of you to be here." Chu Fian pulled Chu Failing and Yang Rulin out of the door. Then, he closed the door and heaved a long sigh of relief. What kind of exquisite mind does Minister Chu have? He knew at a glance that this guy didn't dare to say that he had seen him before. Well, why didn't he dare to say it? Well, he understood. The whole family had been looking for him for 18 years. He even followed him for a long time and didn't tell the family that he had seen him. Not to mention the family, if he said it, even his parents would tear him apart alive. Once he figured it out, Minister Chu immediately felt assured. At the same time, his heart suddenly brightened. Isn't this a very capable assistant? As long as, humph, I can ask him to help me with anything. Looking at Chu Fian, who had turned his head back, Chu Yang said with a half-smile, "So you're my fourth uncle? It's been a long time." Chu Fian's face turned bitter. He lowered his voice and said, "Eldest nephew, I'm here to discuss something with you. Bless. You must help me." Chapter 744. What the hell? Chu Yang looked at Chu Fei Yen with a half-smile and crossed his legs. "Fourth uncle, I'm very busy. My time is precious." Chu Fei Yen felt disgusted, but he couldn't do anything about it. He laughed dryly. "Ha!" Chu Yang exclaimed. "Hey, I'll make tea for fourth uncle. Don't trouble yourself." Chu Fei Yen hurriedly dissuaded him. Even if this little brat put croton in the tea, he could only bear with it. How could he let him make tea? Others didn't know how powerful King of Hell Chu was, but Chu Fei Yen was in the lower 3 heavens. How could he not know? This was a powerful person who overturned the lower 3 heavens when he was only a martial arts great master. In terms of scheming, Chu Fei Yen absolutely believed that no one in the Chu clan was a match for this young man in front of him. Although this guy looked harmless, if he really opened his mouth and bit someone, even a supreme martial artist would tremble. After he modestly declined, he was startled. This bastard said that he was going to make tea, but his butt was firmly stuck on the chair. He didn't even move an inch. He couldn't help but curse in his heart, "Little brat." But how could he not lower his head? He laughed dryly, "Nephew, you're too enthusiastic." Chu Yang smiled gently, "Third uncle, you're too polite." The two of them looked at each other and smiled at each other. The only difference was that Chu Feiyan's smile was as bitter as Chinese gold thread, while Chu Yang's smile was as sweet as honey. Fourth uncle, what can I do for you?" Minister Chu asked innocently. Chu Feiyan shuddered and looked around. He leaned over and lowered his voice. "Nephew, please don't tell me that I've seen you in the lower three heavens. Why?" Chu Yang grinned and raised his eyebrows, revealing an extremely fake puzzled expression. Cough, cough, cough. Chu Feiyan was so angry that he almost died. He looked at Chu Yang with a crooked mouth and an impulse to twitch. "Bastard, you obviously know better than anyone else. But you're playing with me here. Just you wait when I turn over a new leaf if I don't catch you and smack your butt up." In the end, he swallowed his anger and swallowed his anger. He knew that since this fellow had grasped his weakness, the chances of him turning the tables on this bastard was basically zero. "Fourth uncle, you should know that this nephew has just arrived in the upper three heavens. There are many things that I don't understand. I don't know the ropes." Chu Yang changed the topic of discussion. Yes. Chu Feiyan could only agree casually. He thought to himself, what is this guy thinking? Little nephew, it's difficult now. Chu Yang let out a long sigh. Chu Feiyan was speechless. For example, I have medical skills, but there's no place for me to use them. Chu Yang lamented. Chu Feiyan was stunned. Medical skills, for example? I'm poor now. Chu Yang's voice was full of emotion. Fourth uncle, please be the judge. 50 white crystals and 2 blue crystals per month. What can I do with this? As for gold and silver, they're just a bunch of trash. Chu Feiyan said in a daze, but it's always been done this way. All the direct descendants of the Chu clan are treated equally. That's why I said it's not enough. Chu Yang looked at Chu Feiyan with disappointment. He increasingly felt that this fourth uncle of his was a little dull. Then what do you think we should do? Chu Feiyan asked. Why didn't you say this earlier? Do you know how long I've been waiting for you to say this? Chu Yang complained in his heart. He said enthusiastically, what else can we do? Third uncle, I need your help. Let's work together to earn big money. Each of us can get 10 million purple crystals. How cool is that? Chu Feiyan's eyes widened. 10 million purple crystals? You're not dreaming, right? There's so much in the upper heavens. Fourth uncle, you should know my ability. This is just a piece of cake for me, Chu Yang said confidently. What I lack now is a platform. That's all. Chu Feiyan said. So, in the entire clan, only you can help me. Chu Yang hugged Chu Feiyan's shoulders enthusiastically. He winked at Chu Feiyan. Fourth uncle, will you help me? Chu Yang chuckled. Fourth uncle, you can't not help me. Chu Feiyan felt that he had fallen into a trap. Do I dare to say that I won't help you? You fucking changed the topic. Didn't you cover it up for so long just to trap me? If I say that I won't help you, I'm sure that you'll sell me to your grandfather and father in the next moment. Then I'll be in trouble. How can I help you? Chu Feiyan felt as if there was a mouthful of burning iron sand in his throat. It was so troublesome to speak. It's very simple. So and so. That'll do. Chu Yang was exultant. He patted Chu Feiyan's shoulders heavily. Fourth uncle, just wait to make a fortune. No matter what, I have to let you have some soup too, right? Chu Feiyan's face collapsed like a bitter gourd. Alas. Chu Feiyan sighed deeply. Although I'm a punching bag in the Chu clan, but I'm also an elder. This is the first time in my life that I've been threatened like this. Fourth uncle. Chu Yang said discontentedly, how is this threatening? We're cooperating sincerely. All right, cooperation sincerely. Chu Feiyan was dejected. He really wanted to scold. How can cooperation be better than you, a brat eating meat while I, as an uncle, can only drink soup? Besides, whether I can drink soup depends on whether you've found your conscience. Chu Feiyan looked up at the sky miserably. He wanted to cry out loud, "Damn it, you bastard." Every time I came back, I was scolded by your parents and beaten by your grandfather. Now that I've finally found you, I've fallen into your evil hands again. Why is my life so bitter? Where should I start? Chu Feiyan lamented for a while and accepted his fate. To deal with external problems, one must first settle internal problems. Chu Yang said confidently, "Isn't third aunt's lure not in good health? Let me take a look at her." But Chu Feiyan jumped up and widened his eyes. "You can cure Lu?" Take a look." Chu Yang looked at him discontentedly. "Why are you making a fuss about nothing?" Chu Feiyan was already on the move. "If you can cure Lu, I'm willing to sacrifice my life for you." As he said, he couldn't help but sigh softly. That girl is really worrying. Chu Yang looked at him quietly. He looked at his fourth uncle who didn't seem to be scheming, but his eyes were filled with warmth and admiration. He slowly said, "Fourth uncle, you are a good uncle." Chu Yang said this with sincerity. From the words "if you can cure Lu, I'm willing to sacrifice my life for you," Chu Yang felt a familial affection that he had never felt before. Only blood-related relatives would worry so much for their brother's daughter. Chu Feiyan snorted and said, "What nonsense are you spouting? If I don't even care about my own niece, then I'm worse than a beast." He paused. "Then you wait here, I'll go and talk to third sister-in-law. I'll see what she thinks." As he said, he rushed out hurriedly. Chu Feiling and his wife, who were waiting in the courtyard outside, were guessing why their fourth brother was looking for Chu Yang. However, they saw Chu Feiyan rush out like a gust of wind. He walked so fast that he almost knocked into Chu Feiling. He couldn't help but be confused. The sky was getting dark. What's wrong with him? What's wrong with him? Chu Feiling walked in and asked Chu Yang. "Oh, it's like this. We were talking about Lu's illness. I said that I've learned some medical skills before, so fourth uncle rushed out to look for third aunt." Chu Yang made an excuse. "Just based on your mediocre medical skills, who can you possibly cure? You're making your third aunt happy for no reason." Yang Ruolan rebuked. Chu Feiling frowned. He thought of the magical elixirs that Chu Yang gave him. Who knew if they could cure Chu Lu's illness? "You still have those elixirs?" Chu Feiling's question made Yang Ruolan suddenly realize. "Yes, but not much." Chu Yang said, "But those elixirs can only treat injuries, nurse the body, and increase cultivation. They have no effect on congenital illnesses." "I see." Chu Feiling heaved a sigh of relief. Chu Yang suddenly thought of something. "Father, you must keep the fact that I gave you medicine to cure grandfather a secret. Don't tell anyone that I gave it to you." Chu Feiling glared at him. "I know better than you." Both father and son knew that if the Chu clan was peaceful, it wouldn't matter if they knew. However, now that Chu Feilong was here, they had to be careful. If Chu Feilong sold this information, Chu Yang would never have a day of peace. His life might even be in danger. How would Chu Feiling dare to take such a risk? Hurried footsteps came from outside the door. Then, Chu Feiyan rushed in like a gust of wind with the frail Chu Lur in his arms. He rushed in too quickly, and the wind blew into Chu Lur's mouth, causing her to cough. Behind him, another white figure rushed in under the twilight. It was Chu Lur's mother, Chu Yang's third aunt, Duan Shui. At this moment, she looked anxious, with a hint of expectation and anxiety. Chu Yang hurriedly stood up. "Third aunt." Duan Shui rushed over and grabbed Chu Yang's hand. Yang, can you cure Lur's illness?" Chu Yang said cautiously, "I've been taught medicine by an extraordinary person, so I have some attainments. However, whether I can cure her or not, I'll only know after seeing her." "Then," Duan Shui said anxiously, "why don't you take a look at Lu?" Her eyes reddened as she said, "Lur's illness, even the divine doctors of the Medicine Valley, said that they couldn't do anything about it." Your third uncle and I are really exhausted after all these years. Yang Ruolin held Duan Shuyi's hand and comforted her softly. Chu Yang smiled and looked at Chu Lu, who was in Chu Fei Yan's arms, and said, "Come, Sister Lu, let me take a look at you." Chapter 745. Chu Lu turned her head and looked at Chu Yang. She actually smiled quietly and said softly and slowly, "Big brother, sorry to trouble you." She struggled out of Chu Fian's arms and walked over quietly. Her expression was actually very calm. She even looked a little stupefied. At such a young age, she actually looked as if she had seen through life and death and the ways of the world. Chu Yang knew that her illness was still ongoing. In other words, she was still having a headache now. But there was no trace of pain in this strong little girl's expression. She was already used to bearing it. The reason why she came here was so that her mother wouldn't be sad or worried about her. She was only 11 years old. Chu Yang also knew that she had actually completely given up on him. The reason why she came here was just to give her mother hope. That was all. She didn't think that he could cure her. In fact, even Duan Shui didn't think that Chu Yang would be able to cure her. But now they had really reached the point where they were desperate to try anything. Even the most powerful medicine valley couldn't do anything about this illness. Who else could cure this illness? The reason why Duan Shui brought her daughter here was probably not to cure her daughter, but to tell her, "Mother hasn't given up on you. You can't give up on yourself." Looking at Chu Lu's calm face, Chu Yang only felt his heart beating faintly. An extremely tender feeling surged up. This was his own little sister. She did not have any cultivation, nor did she have a prideful appearance. However, her determination and filial piety were enough to move anyone's heart. "Sit down," Chu Yang said warmly. Chu sat down quietly and stretched out her hand. Her palm faced up and laid it flat on the table. She was extremely familiar with this set of movements. Chu Yang looked and couldn't help but feel a tug in his heart again. Chu Lu's hand was perhaps only half the thickness of the arm of a little girl of her age. She was skinny, with skin wrapped around bones. At such a young age, her skin was already wrinkled. Chu Yang took a deep breath and stretched out his finger to touch Chu Lu's wrist. In the tribulation space, a wisp of the sword spirit's consciousness entered Chu Lu's meridians through Chu Yang's finger. After a long time, "It's basically the same as what I saw last time," the sword spirit instructed. Chu Yang's heart sank, and he loosened his fingers. "How is it?" Chu Fei Yan asked nervously. Duan Shui clenched her fists and stood aside, not daring to ask. Chu Yang took a deep breath. He didn't say anything. His face was solemn. Everyone's expression immediately turned sorrowful. Almost every time, after the diagnosis of the godly doctor, they would have the same expression. Could it be Chu sat quietly at her original spot? Her face was expressionless, as if everything around her had nothing to do with her. It was as if what Chu Yang was about to talk about was also an unrelated person's illness. She said softly, "Big brother, feel free to say it. I've already heard some words hundreds of times. Don't worry, it's nothing for me to hear it again." He had heard these words hundreds of times already. Chu Yang's heart ached again. He took a deep breath. He had no choice but to repeat the sword spirit's words. Sister Lu's illness is caused by a congenital injury. This kind of illness was very rare. Usually, if the fetus didn't die in the womb, it wouldn't live for more than 3 years after birth. But Sister Lu is already 11 years old this year. This shows how much effort third uncle and third aunt have put in all these years. You can actually tell? Duan Shi opened her mouth wide. She looked at Chu Yang, and for the first time, her eyes were filled with hope. Chu Yang said, "This kind of illness is a very subtle brain injury. The specific symptoms are constant headaches, drowsiness, confusion in the mind, spasms all over the body, or prolonged coma. The most painful part is cramping from the head to the shoulders, along the spine to the soles of the feet. It can even cause the whole body to curl up into a ball. This kind of feeling is even more unbearable than the cruelest torture in the world." Chu stared at Chu Yang. Tears slowly slid down her cheeks and dripped down. Duan Shi covered her face with her hands. These were tears of pain, but also tears of hope. After so many years, this was the first time that someone had said it clearly after taking her pulse. At least, before this, no one else had said that. The most severe part is cramping from the head to the shoulders, along the spine to the soles of the feet. Duan Shi was the one who understood this the best. Every time her daughter's illness acted up, she would hug her daughter tightly in her arms and feel her daughter's body twitching in vain. She could even see her daughter's tendons slowly bulging out, squirming and twisting at a speed visible to the naked eye. Then, her daughter's body would completely change shape, and her heart would also be throbbing and breaking at that moment. Can it be treated? Chu Fian asked anxiously. Treated? Chu Yang took a deep breath and said, It's very difficult to treat, very difficult to treat. Chu Failing, Chu Fian, Yang Ruolin and Duan Shui all shouted at the same time. Even Chu Lu, who was already disheartened, raised her head in a daze. Her eyes shone brightly as she looked at Chu Yang. Her dry, bloodless lips also began to tremble slightly. Very difficult to treat. What did that mean? Very difficult to treat, that meant it could still be treated. Although it was difficult, there was still hope. In the past, all the doctors, including the divine doctors from the Medicine Valley, would simply say that it couldn't be treated, or that it was incurable and there was no way to treat it. At most, only the high priest of the Medicine Valley gave a prescription to prolong one's life, which required a large amount of elixirs. He pointed out that as long as one had any of the elixirs in this prescription, one could prolong one's life. But at the same time, he pointed out that it could only prolong one's life until the age of 13. It was absolutely hopeless to cure it completely. Even if all the prescriptions were found, it would be useless. There was absolutely no one in the world who could treat this illness. For so many years, Chu Feiyan and Duan Shui had almost abandoned everything for their daughter. Chu Feiyan had tried his best to gather information from the outside, to earn purple crystals, and to collect herbs in places where no one dared to go or where even martial saints did not dare to go. Even the entire Chu clan had almost emptied all the purple crystals in their storage for Chu Luer's illness. But in the face of the expensive elixirs in the prescription, it was still a drop in the bucket. Because that prescription was simply a prescription that would cause one to despair. Other than dozens of spiritual treasures, all the rare elixirs in the heavenly level continent were listed. With such a prescription, not to mention the Chu clan, even one of the dominant clans, would go bankrupt. Moreover, it could only prolong one's life, but not cure it completely. So in the end, Chu Feiyan rejected the clan's help and left alone to search for elixirs for his daughter. Until now, he had only found less than 10 elixirs in the hundreds of prescriptions. Although the couple had already made up their mind that even if the elixirs they collected could only prolong their daughter's life by one day, they would still put in all their effort. Even if she could only prolong her life by 2 hours, they had to keep her alive for 2 hours. But if the entire Chu clan was implicated and declined, it was a responsibility that the couple could not bear. Now, Chu Yang said that it was very difficult to treat. Difficult meant that it could be treated. Duan Shi cried tears of joy. The oil lamp on the table jumped, and a cluster of lights burst out. Chu Yang walked over slowly and closed the door. Turning around, he walked to the table and sat down. He said in a low voice, "There are no outsiders here, so I'll be direct. Third aunt, Sister Lu's illness is very troublesome. Currently, I don't have any elixirs with me. This is the first reason. The second reason, Sister Lu's illness can only prolong her life for another 2 years." When this sentence was said, everyone was shocked to the extreme. They couldn't help but believe that Chu Yang really had the ability to cure Chu Lu, because this illness could only prolong her life until she was 13 years old. Only the high priest of the Medicine Valley had said this before. And this sentence was the Chu clan's top secret. Outsiders never knew. But now, Chu Yang said it out loud. "What's the third reason?" Duan Shi asked in a trembling voice. "The third reason? There are 2 possibilities. That is to say, while we search for those elixirs in these 2 years, if we can't find them in these 2 years, I'm still confident that I can prolong Sister Le's life for another 2 years. We'll have more time to search for those elixirs. Chu Yang said. When this sentence was said, Duan Shi's tears flowed down. Prolong her life for another 2 years. That's great, that's great. Suddenly, she covered her face and started to cry. To Duan Shi, her daughter could only live until she was 13 years old. This was a heavy blow, like a curse. Every time she heard the word 13, Duan Shi couldn't help but go crazy. But now, she actually heard that not only was there hope, but that if she couldn't find the elixirs before she was 13 years old, she could prolong her life for another 2 years to wait for the elixirs. To Duan Shi, this was practically music to her ears. However, there was a sorrowful expression on Chu Le's face. Her delicate little face seemed to have turned black at this moment. She clearly knew what prolong her life for another 2 years meant. This meant that she would have to endure this pain day and night for another 2 years. The little girl bit her lip, her eyes complicated. She had been tortured by her illness for a long time. Her mind was no longer comparable to that of an ordinary 11-year-old girl. She looked at Chu Yang with a conflicted expression, then looked at her mother who was crying tears of joy. She couldn't help but clench her hands tightly. For mother and father's sake. I'll endure it for another 2 years. So what? Isn't it just pain? I've already endured this pain for 11 years. What's 2 more years? Besides, she really couldn't bear to leave her mother and her home. You said that there are 2 possibilities. What's the second one? Chu Fian asked hurriedly. The second possibility is, I can treat Sister Le now so that she won't feel any pain for 3 months. This means that I can temporarily suppress her illness. I can let her be like a normal child. She won't feel sleepy cramps or headaches anymore. Chu Yang said solemnly. As everyone listened, they widened their eyes and opened their mouths in shock and ecstasy. I can only suppress it for 2 years. Chu Yang continued solemnly. And after 2 years, if I can't find all the required elixirs, then I can't do anything about it. This means that I can't prolong her life for another 2 years. Chapter 746. Everyone was stunned. Chu Fian swayed dizzily and sat on the ground. He was dumbfounded and didn't speak for a long time. This is a difficult choice. Chu Yang took a deep breath. So, I don't dare to make the decision myself. I need third aunt to make a decision. Everyone understood that only the child's mother, Duan Shi, could make such a decision. No one else had the right to do so. It was reasonable for Chu Yang to kick him out. There was nothing wrong with that. But everyone was still speechless. If she didn't want to suffer for the next 2 years, she had to give up the chance to extend her life for the next 2 years. If she wanted to extend her life for the next 2 years, it was impossible to reduce the pain for the next 2 years. Duan Shi bit her lips painfully. Her daughter had been in pain for 11 years. How could she let go of this rare opportunity? But, if she chose to live without pain for the next 2 years, what if the elixirs couldn't be found? The elixirs were hard to find. Everyone had personally experienced it these few years. Who was so confident that they could find all the elixirs within 2 years? But if she gave up the next 2 years, what if the elixirs were found soon after the child died? Wouldn't she regret it for the rest of her life? This choice was truly a dilemma. Everyone was silent at the same time. Chu Feiling frowned. Yang Ruolin's face was solemn. Putting themselves in their shoes, if their child was in such a situation and they had to make a choice, the couple would not dare to make a decision rashly. This wasn't a choice, it was a dilemma. Chu Fian, who had always been the most enthusiastic, held his breath at this moment. He didn't even dare to cough. Duan Shi's face was full of contradictions and pain. She opened her mouth and closed it again. She didn't know what to do. Chu Le watched from the side. After a long time, she suddenly plucked up her courage and said, "Big brother, can I choose?" Chu Yang was stunned. He said, Of course you can choose." Chu Le pouted and stuck out her little tongue to lick her lips nervously. She turned to look at her mother, her eyes full of longing. She turned back and said resolutely, "Big brother, what? I want to live for 2 more years. Even if there's no hope, even if it's painful. I want to live to 15 years old. Chu Yang was stunned. Not only Chu Yang, but also Chu Feiling, Yang Rulan and Chu Fian were stunned. Why? Chu Yang asked in surprise. Everyone thought that this girl would definitely choose to live without pain for 2 years. He would never have thought that she would choose to live for 2 more years. Endure the extreme pain and live for another 2 years. I want to accompany my mother and father. Chu Lur lowered her eyelashes and said sadly, they can't bear to part with me, and I can't bear to part with them either. My parents are too pitiful. Ever since I was able to remember things, I've never seen them smile because of me, even if it hurts more. I want to accompany them for 2 more years. Big brother, you don't know this. When I'm in pain, my mother hugs me and I don't feel any pain anymore. Really? Chu Lu said seriously. I'm afraid that my mother will be sad and my father will be sad. She paused and turned to look at her mother affectionately. Even if it's just delaying their sadness by 2 years, it's still good. I'll be very strong. I promise I won't scream when it hurts. Ugh. Duan Shuyi let out a heart-wrenching cry. Chu Feiling's eyes were wet and he sighed deeply. Yang Rulan's tears had already flowed down. Chu Fian sniffled and took deep breaths. He kept blinking and not letting his tears fall. He kept muttering, "Good child. Good child." Chu Yang also almost shed tears. Everyone knew that the pain that Chu Lu was enduring now was really worse than death. Every day that passed was another day of torture. Every 2 hours that passed was another 2 hours of pain. But this strong little girl resolutely chose to endure this pain that was 10 times worse than purgatory for 2 more years so that her parents wouldn't be sad. Chu Yang's heart began to tremble. Duan Shi suddenly raised her head with tears all over her face. I want her to live without pain for 2 more years. Ah! Chu Yang, Yang Rulan, Chu Feiling and Chu Fian exclaimed at the same time. Duan Shi hugged her daughter in her arms. Her voice trembled as she said, ever since Liu was born, she has never experienced what it feels like to live without pain. She has never had fun and never been happy. All the things that other children have are very normal. She has been in this world for 11 years, but she has never enjoyed even a little bit of it. Since there's this chance to let her live without pain for 2 years, then I have to satisfy her no matter what. It's good if we can find the medicine in 2 years. If we can't find it, Duan Shuyi's tears streamed down. If we can't find it, I'll let my daughter have 2 years of happiness in her limited lifespan of 13 years, she grinned miserably. If we can find it, 2 years is about enough. If we can't find it, even if we have 200 years, it will be in vain. That's fate. I only hope that no matter if my daughter is born or not, there will be days when she is free of illness and pain. Even if I can't find the medicine 2 years later, my daughter will still have 2 years of happiness. 2 years of no pain. Everyone was moved. There's actually such a mother and daughter in this world. Mother! Chu Lu's tears streamed down. She stuffed her small head into her mother's arms. Her 2 thin and weak arms wrapped tightly around her mother's waist. She started to sob softly. That's good. Chu Yang took a deep breath. He only felt that his eyes were wet and hot. He said, that's right. Third and, I only have one request. Duan Shui asked, what request? This matter has nothing to do with me. That means, no matter who asks, don't say that I did it, Chu Yang said seriously. I understand. Duan Shi sized up her nephew who had just arrived. There was understanding in her eyes, but more than that, there was some praise. It seemed that this nephew's intelligence far exceeded that of his peers. He was even more careful in his actions. It seemed that the Chu clan had hope. Since he was so careful in his actions, then he must have some confidence in Lu's matter. Fourth uncle, there's only 2 years, Chu Yang said. You have to help me find the medicine. Chu Fian nodded vigorously. Of course. Even if I have to sacrifice my life, I must find the medicine for Lu. Why is it only your 4th uncle? Are your mother and I just decorations? Chu Feiling said unhappily. Yes. I misspoke. Chu Yang smiled bitterly. He nodded and bowed, apologizing to the old master first. Then he took out a piece of paper and a brush and wrote on it. After a while, he said, "These are the 8 medicinal herbs needed to treat Lu. Every single one of them had to be found within 2 years. Furthermore, it had to be found within 23 months from now. Give me a month's time to prepare the medicine." Everyone came forward. Then there was a series of uniform gasps. Absolute vine, colored lotus, single flower, jade petal, lingji, life pangolin, lifeless water, heavenly jade elixir, earth soul ginseng. The 4 adults were stunned. These medicines were for treating Lu's illness? If these medicines were gathered together, they could corrode the ground under the Chu clan by 3,000 feet. Have you memorized them? Chu Yang said lightly. Yes, Chu Fian muttered, concentrating on memorizing. Among everyone present, he was the one who knew King of Hell Chu the best. Since King of Hell Chu said that he could treat Lu, then he could. If King of Hell Chu said that these medicines were effective, then they were effective. On this point, he had more confidence in Chu Yang than Chu Failing did. Yes. Chu Yang put this piece of paper on the lamp. The flame rolled out and the paper started to burn. It slowly burned to ashes. Chu Yang threw it on the ground and crushed the ashes with his foot. There was no need to say anything else. Chu Yang's action had already explained everything. This prescription must not be leaked out. The medicinal herbs needed must not be known to outsiders except for the few people present today. Everyone's faces became serious. Follow me to the inner chamber. Chu Yang said, "Father, mother, wait outside with 4th uncle and 3rd aunt. No matter how long it takes, don't let anyone disturb us." The 4 of them agreed at the same time. Yang, I'm counting on you. Duan Shi looked at Chu Yang with a pleading face. She looked at her daughter with concern. 3rd aunt, don't worry. When we come out, I promise to return you a healthy daughter. Chu Yang smiled and made a small joke to ease the tense atmosphere. I believe you. Duan Shi nodded vigorously. Chu kept looking back as Chu Yang pulled her into the inner chamber. Duan Shi looked at the entrance of the inner chamber in a daze. Her hands reached forward as if she wanted to grab something. She finally sat down and muttered to herself nervously, "Will it work? It will work, right? It will definitely work. Don't worry, it will be fine. It will work." Yang Rulin grabbed her hand and patted it gently to comfort her. Duan Shi was like a drowning person suddenly grabbing onto a piece of driftwood. She grabbed Yang Rulin's hand tightly and said with tears in her eyes, "Sister-in-law, I'm counting on you now." I really didn't expect Yang to have learned such earth-shattering skills after being outside for so many years. Yang Ruolan knew that she shouldn't be proud at this moment. But she still felt proud. And she also felt the same way about Duan Shi's misery. So she sighed. Then she said in a somewhat proud and perturbed manner, "Don't worry. Yang is still young. But she's very steady in her actions. She won't speak without thinking. Since he said he can treat it, he will definitely be able to treat it." Duan Shi nodded repeatedly. She grabbed Yang Rulin's hand and didn't let go. "Sister-in-law, this is my last hope. You know what kind of life I've been living all these years." Chapter 747. Although Chu Failing and his wife had lost their child, they could still forget about her when they didn't see each other or when they were busy. They had hope in their hearts. As long as they found her, their child would be fine and there would always be hope in their hearts. On the other hand, the 3rd brother and his wife stayed by their daughter's side all the time. They saw their daughter's pain, her convulsions and her suffering, but they couldn't do anything about it. They knew that it was hopeless, but they still stayed by her side. They were like criminals on death row who knew when they would be beheaded. They were waiting for that day in vain, but they couldn't do anything about it. No, they were even worse off than criminals on death row. Because they still had to work hard, desperately accumulate all their wealth, desperately use all their means to stop this death that they knew was unstoppable. Parents in the world had a pitiful heart. Chu Feiyan and Duan Shuyi used their lives, souls, and all their hard work to realize this sentence, even if it meant that their child could live for another 15 minutes. They were still willing to give up everything. Now, Duan Shuyi was accompanying her child at home, heartbroken, while Chu Feiyan was still frantically searching for her in some unknown mountain. Yang Ruolin and Duan Shuyi sighed at each other. If you are not a parent, you will not know the hardships of raising a child. If you are not a parent, you will not know the kindness of a parent. In this world, who knew how many parents like this? Who knew how many more were there? Chu Yang brought Chu Lur into the inner chamber. He smiled and pointed to the bed. Be good. Lie down on the bed. I'll treat your illness. You'll be fine in a while. Chu Lur tilted her head and looked at him. She actually smiled gently. Big brother, although I'm young, you don't have to coax me like a child. Chu Yang was stunned. Huh. Chu Lur revealed a look of arrogance between her brows. At this moment, this thin and weak body actually revealed its sharpness. She smiled faintly and said, Big brother, ever since I could feel pain, I've been going back and forth in the 18 levels of hell every day. She raised her eyebrows and smiled sadly but proudly. In this world, I'm probably the only one who can survive like me, right? Chu Yang looked at her deeply and said, That's right, Lu. In terms of strength, you're the strongest I've ever seen. He added another sentence in his heart. Even if you include the seniors, you are still the one and only. Chu Lur smiled. Big brother, I was able to survive because, firstly, I couldn't leave father and mother. The moment I thought of leaving them forever, I trained myself with all my might, endured the pain with all my might, and accepted the cruelest treatment and pain with all my might. Just so that, when I'm done with the pain, I can tell my mother, Mother, I'm not in pain anymore. At that time, a smile appeared on Mother's face. Although it's bleak, every time I see it, I feel very happy. The pain is worth it. Also, when my mother hugged me, the warm smell of her body made me drunk. This was the second. Therefore, even though I knew that every day I lived was another day of torture for my mother and myself, I still couldn't bear to die. Because I'm afraid. I've heard that the world is dark and cold. There's no one to accompany you, and you're all alone. So I'm afraid. I don't dare to go. Big brother, don't you think I'm very selfish? Chu Imo sat down leisurely in front of Chu Yang. Her frail back was actually very straight. His eyes, which were originally lifeless, were now shining brightly. You're not selfish. Chu Yang's throat moved a little. He swallowed a mouthful of saliva. After organizing his words in his mind for a long time, he said slowly, You're not selfish. Third uncle and third aunt have given up everything for you, just so that you can live on. You're right. Every day you live is a day of torture for them. But as long as you're alive, they'll feel motivated to work hard for you. If you give up and die, third uncle and third aunt indeed won't have to endure such torture in the future. But the pain you leave behind will torment their own generation. Because you should have lived to 13 years old, but you didn't. They'll feel that they've let you down. Remember, only this kind of inner guilt is the greatest torture in a person's life. After Chu Yang said this deeply, he couldn't help but sigh in his heart. Qingwu, if not for the guilt from my previous life, how could I be like this in this life? Big brother, what you said is really good. Chu Lur clearly became more cheerful after hearing these words. She actually smiled sincerely and said, I've always felt that I'm very selfish and also very guilty. Does this mean that I'm not? No, but even so, your strength has made up for everything. Chu Yang said deeply, you have to know that you were injured in your mother's womb. Third uncle and third aunt already feel that they owe you. If you continue, won't they really be in so much pain that they wish they were dead? Chu Lur's thin eyebrows furrowed. After thinking hard for a long time, she finally stood up quietly and bowed deeply to Chu Yang. She said, Big brother, thank you. She raised her head and looked at Chu Yang. Her eyes were clear and bright. She said, Big brother, do you know that in such a family with parents, uncles, big brother, and now you, it's really very blissful. Such a family, even if it's poor, even if it makes me feel 1,000 times or 10,000 times the pain now, I can't bear to leave. Chu Le said. Chu Yang's heart ached. He said gently, I promise that you'll never leave. Chu Le said with tears in her eyes, Big brother, treat my injuries. With tears in her eyes, she smiled mischievously. I didn't believe that you could treat me at first, but now, I believe you. Chu Yang smiled and scratched her nose. He scolded, Little rascal. Chu Le giggled. Chu Yang realized that once this little girl smiled sincerely, there was actually a different charm to her. Her eyebrows first moved a little, and then the bridge of her nose wrinkled up slightly. At the same time, her lips curled up slightly, like spring flowers blooming. As Chu Yang instructed the sword spirit to prepare, he said sincerely, You'll definitely be a great beauty when you grow up. I don't know how many people will be charmed by you. Chu Le held her hands in front of her chest and said happily, Really? Really? Chu Yang nodded affirmatively. And at this time, the sword spirit had also finished the preparations. Chu Yang helped Chu Le to lie down on his bed slowly. He smiled and asked, Just now you mentioned your pillars. I wonder if there's a third pillar? Chu Yang was originally joking, but after he said that, Chu Le actually sat up straight and said seriously, Yes. Big brother, the third pillar is that I feel that I'm the most amazing person in the world. She smiled proudly, with a sense of disdain for the heavens and the pride of looking down on all the men in the world. She raised her little neck slightly and said, Every day, I walk back and forth in the land of hell from the 1st to the 18th level. Every time I walk, I'll be tortured once. I've been like this for 11 years and 2 months, and I've been hanging for 18 hours every day for 3 days. Chu Yang couldn't help but be shocked. She remembered it so clearly. Chu Le smiled and said, Big brother, I was born in the wee hours of the morning. I remember my birthday well. I want to know how long I can bear it. But no matter how long I can bear it, I'm afraid there's no one in history who can bear the pain like me. Even a supreme martial artist can't do it. This is my greatest pride. Although it's painful, I'm filled with a sense of accomplishment. It's this pride and sense of accomplishment that supports me to bear it day by day. As long as the heavens don't take me away by force, I'll continue to bear it day by day. Big brother, I'm actually very proud. Chu Le smiled lightly and lay back. She even stretched. It's so comfortable. Big brother, your bed is even softer than mine. Chu Yang looked at her in a daze. He faintly felt that if his sister was really cured, she would definitely become a terrifying figure in the world of the heavens in the future. Not for anything else, but for this tenacity. She was only 11 years old, but not only was she strong, she was also tenacious. The rarest thing was that in such a place of torture that was crueler than hell, she could actually still find happiness and a sense of accomplishment. This was already an inconceivable matter. And on the basis of all this, she could still reflect on herself and look down on the world. She already had all the conditions to become a peerless expert, and had far surpassed them. Once her chronic illness was cured, she would be a hidden dragon rising to the heavens. No one would be able to stop her from advancing. In the space of the tribulation, the sword spirit looked at Chu Le quietly and said solemnly, Chu Yang, do you know that when she was talking to you, her condition was gradually worsening? Her head was hurting more and more. Did you see that? Chu Yang took a breath. No. The sword spirit nodded and made a clear conclusion. Chu Yang, your sister is the most terrifying person among all the people I've seen in the past 10,000 years. Only then did Chu Yang exhale the breath that he had just taken in. He said quietly, I'm proud of her. The two of them didn't talk any more nonsense. Chu Yang stood quietly and held Chu Le's wrist. Somehow, there seemed to be a shadow that came out of his body and entered Chu Le's body through the meridians on her wrist. Then, extremely carefully, it climbed up to the position of her brain. It disappeared. Chu Le moaned in pain and lost all consciousness. Outside, Duan Shi's eyes were fixed on the door of the inner chamber. She was restless. The two brothers, Chu Feiling and Chu Fian, sat opposite each other. It was as if there were nails under their buttocks. After sitting for a while, They would get up and walk around with their hands behind their backs. Or they would simply go out and patrol around the room before coming back in. The four of them didn't even dare to speak. Inside, Chu Yang seemed to be talking to Chu Lu, but their voices were muffled. Even if they used their martial arts, they couldn't hear what they were saying. This was the sword spirit's doing. With the sword spirit's cultivation, as long as he didn't want anyone to hear something, even a supreme martial artist could only stare helplessly. But if he wanted someone to hear it, even if they covered their ears or became deaf, they would still be able to hear it clearly. The four of them listened for a long time but couldn't hear anything. They were all very surprised. They were clearly talking, but at such a close distance, even a monarch-level expert could only hear muffled words. This was unbelievable. After a long time, they suddenly heard a soft chuckle from inside. Although the sound was soft and inaudible, it could be heard clearly. Chapter 748. Although this voice was soft, it was indeed Chu Lu's voice. Furthermore, there was no pain in her laughter. It was filled with joy from the bottom of her heart. This was a joyous laughter that couldn't be faked at all. Duan Shuyi's entire body was trembling. Her tears were falling like rain. She had forgotten her feelings and grabbed Yang Ruolan's hand. She had used so much strength that it hurt Yang Ruolan's hand. She repeatedly said, "Sister-in-law, did you hear that? Did you hear that? It's a..." Or smiled. Yang Ruolan was also excited. She muttered, It's Lu." Duan Shuyi sobbed and couldn't form a sound. Lu has never smiled like this in the past 11 years. Today, she actually smiled. She smiled so happily. "Sister-in-law, I'm really satisfied to be able to hear such a laugh in my life. I'm so happy." As she spoke, she couldn't stop her tears from falling. She said, "If Feiyan could hear it, I believe that even if he's in the 100,000 mountains, he'd be gratified and happy." Chu Feiling's expression dimmed. He couldn't help but feel sad when he thought of how his third brother was still wandering around some barren mountains surrounded by clouds. The continuous clouds, the sky-reaching mountains, the dangerous valleys, the ferocious beasts, and the unpredictable human heart. Over the past 11 years, it didn't dispel his third brother's determination to seek medicine for his daughter. I wonder where third brother is at this moment? But he was still in the misty mountain range, searching for that illusory hope that was destined to be extinguished. The young child who followed behind him and called him Big Brother back then had now grown into an indomitable man. Even though this process was so bitter and bitter. When everyone heard this laughter, it was as if they had heard the sound of nature. Everyone's eyes were a little red and their minds were a little dazed. For so many years, they had waited for such a laugh. How long had they waited? How much had they sacrificed for this laugh? Everyone stood there in a daze, deep in thought. Only Duan Shuyi's soft sobs could be heard in the room. She was still holding Yang Ruolan's hand. Her body was so weak that she almost fainted. "Sister-in-law, Yang can make her laugh like that? I'm willing to do anything for him." Yang Ruolan sighed deeply. She didn't know what to say. She only felt that her throat was blocked. So, she held Yang Ruolan's hand tightly. In the inner chamber, Chu Yang's mind was tightly connected with the sword spirit. It was as if he could see it. The sword spirit first entered Chu Lu's meridians and then followed her meridians to a pitch-black space. To Chu Yang's surprise, this space was brimming with vitality. The sword spirit sighed, "This little girl's strength can be seen at this moment. Even a perfectly healthy person might not have such vitality. However, this vitality is like water without roots." Then, the sword spirit stretched out his hand. When his two hands reached out of his sleeves, they transformed into thousands of rays of golden light. It was as if a heavenly deity had suddenly descended. Then, he closed his eyes and took a deep breath. He raised both his hands at the same time and made complicated gestures. Following his gestures, lightning flashed and thunder roared in the entire space. Rays of golden light shot out and disappeared into the corners of this space without a trace. Chu Yang counted carefully. A total of 81 rays of golden light shot out from the sword spirit's hands. Then, it suddenly descended. It was as if a faint shadow had suddenly formed in this space. Then, it suddenly disintegrated and turned into rays of milky white light. They penetrated this space and entered Chu Lu's brain. Then, one could clearly see that this milky white light was suppressing bits and pieces of pitch-black matter. They separated from Chu Lu's brain and formed a black cloud. The white light suppressed the black cloud and entered her meridians. It gathered the bits and pieces of black matter in her meridians bit by bit and tried its best to suppress them downwards. Its speed became slower and slower. The sword spirit once again made complicated gestures. Then, another ray of white light exploded and entered her meridians. It formed a new force and suppressed the black cloud downwards. This happened 3 times in a row. Only then did all the bits and pieces of black matter were suppressed into a ball and placed into Chu Lu's danan. The white light enveloped her layer by layer and remained stable. The sword spirit heaved a long sigh and said, "Chu Yang, this sister of yours?" He suddenly stopped and changed the topic. "After 3 months, you must suppress her again at the same time. Otherwise, once it recoils, the pain will be 10 times more painful than before." Chu Yang nodded solemnly. "I will remember this and not delay it." The sword spirit revealed a tired look and said, "That's good. Although I could tell that this little girl's condition was bad, I didn't expect it to be so serious. The original plan was to suppress it once, but it actually happened 3 times. What exactly is this?" Chu Yang asked. "It's actually so domineering?" "This is a congenital illness. Or to put it more deeply, you don't understand. In the human body, other than the meridians, veins, bones, skin and flesh, there's an even more subtle component. Our heavens continent hasn't recognized this component yet, but it's these parts that are the most important." The sword spirit said, "It's these parts that really control the joy and pain of the human body. The pain from being beaten, the anger from being scolded, the sadness from being sad, the sense of taste and so on, are all controlled by this part. And Lur is injured in these parts." Chu Yang said in shock, "There's such a thing?" The sword spirit smiled. "The human body is a universe of its own. It's all-encompassing. Not to mention this, there are many more subtle and more important things than these that haven't been discovered yet. If all of them are discovered, even if an ordinary person can reach the cultivation level of a second-grade supreme martial artist or even higher in a day, I wouldn't be surprised. The world is obsessed with finding treasures and reaping without sowing, but they don't know that the greatest treasure in a person's life is his own body. For hundreds of thousands of years, countless people in the heavens continent have lived in this treasure house, but they haven't touched it at all. They've been poor all their lives. It's really sad and lamentable." The sword spirit sighed deeply. Chu Yang frowned and pondered. "Lur's illness is congenital. Congenital can make people achieve glory, but can also make people sink into misery. Usually this kind of thing." The sword spirit pointed to the black spot in Chu Lu's danan and said, "We call it poison of heaven and earth." "Poison of heaven and earth." Chu Yang murmured, as if he had thought of something. The sword spirit didn't waste any more time. He transformed out of Chu Lu's body and returned to Chu Yang's sea of consciousness. He said, "I need to rest for a while. Once Chu Lu recovers, her talent will be very heaven-defying. Although she started late, she'll definitely become a terrifying figure in the future. Or maybe she'll be of great help to you." Chu Yang smiled faintly. "Sword spirit, you've underestimated me. Lur is my younger sister. If she doesn't have any great ambitions, I'd rather she live a peaceful and happy life. I'd rather she live an ordinary but happy life. But if she has the desire to become a strong person, I'll naturally pave the way for her. But as for whether she'll be of help to me, I'm not so low as to use my sister." The sword spirit didn't answer. He had already entered a deep state of recuperation. Chu Yang pushed the door open and walked out. Chu Feiling, Yang Ruolin, and Chu Fian, who had been waiting anxiously for a long time, immediately surrounded him when they saw him coming out. "How is it?" This was Chu Feiling. "Is it done?" This was Yang Ruolin. Why didn't Le come out? This was Chu Fian. Only Duan Shuyi was a little timid. She stood where she was, looking at Chu Yang closely. She wanted to hear what Chu Yang had to say, but she was also afraid of what Chu Yang would say. She didn't dare to step forward. Fortunately, I didn't disappoint you. Chu Yang chuckled. His first sentence made everyone happy, or shouldn't feel any pain for the next 3 months. That's great. Chu Failing and the other two clapped their hands excitedly. Duan Shi let out a choked moan. Her body swayed and she almost fell down. Yang Rulin was quick to react. She hurriedly caught her. Is asleep. Chu Yang said, "Third aunt, go in and take a look." She's fine now. Duan Shi nodded emotionally. She wanted to take a step forward, but she felt that her legs were soft and didn't listen to her. Yang Rulin had to support her before she walked in. Although Duan Shuyi's cultivation wasn't considered high in the Chu clan, she was still a disciple of a famous teacher. She also had the cultivation of a martial emperor. Now that she was so weak, it could be seen how intense her heart was. Inside the room, Chu Le was lying quietly on Chu Yang's bed. Her two thin and pitiful arms were crossed on her lower abdomen. Her small head was slightly tilted as she rested her head on the pillow. Her face was glowing with a long-lost blush. Her long eyelashes covered her eyelids like small fans. Her small lips would occasionally move slightly, and the corners of her mouth would curl up. It seemed that even in her sleep, she also felt this relaxed and happy feeling that she had never tasted before. She was smiling happily. Duan Shuyi stared blankly at her daughter who was sleeping soundly. Her eyes slowly filled with tears. Her daughter was already 11 years old, and this was the first time she had ever seen her daughter's face. Her body slowly softened until she knelt in front of the bed. She was full of gratitude and joy. She gently placed her head on the bed. She looked at her daughter without blinking and covered her mouth with her hands. Chu Yang and the others quietly left. In the living room, the fragrance of tea rose in spirals. Yang Rulin had rebrewed tea for the three of them to soothe their throats. Everyone knew that Chu Luer's crisis had passed temporarily. From now on, it was time to compete. Medicine. This was the key thing. The time was very short. Only 2 years. Chapter 749. Chu Fian frowned. This medicine? Our clan only has one type of absolute vine. This is the only type that my third brother stole from the 100,000 mountains 5 years ago. He almost lost his life because of it. We don't have the other 7 types. Chu Yang raised his eyebrows. Even if we don't have it, other clans don't have it? We don't know if other clans have it or not. Chu Failing frowned. But even if other clans have it, isn't this medicine also very expensive? And there's no market for it. Besides our Chu clan, there are 2 other big clans in the flat mountain ridge. The other small clans can be ignored. But these 2 clans have always been fighting openly and secretly with our Chu clan. How would they be willing to sell such precious medicine to us? That's right. Right now, the flames of war are everywhere in the heavenly realm. Chaos is everywhere. It seems that a great chaos is about to erupt. At such a time, poisons that harm people are more popular than life-saving medicines. Yang, you've just arrived in the upper 3 heavens and don't understand the situation. Don't think of everything too simply. Chu Yang said innocently, I didn't think of it that simply. Don't tell me that there aren't any big businesses, auctions or organizations that collect remuneration in this flat mountain ridge. We don't have access to these channels. Plus, we'll collect by ourselves. 2 years is enough. Chu Fian smiled bitterly. 2 years is enough? I really don't know how you came to this conclusion. Even if there are, how can our Chu clan take out so many purple crystals to buy it? Not to mention that second brother is a little stingy in managing the household. Even if second brother isn't stingy, the Chu clan can't afford such wealth. Yang Rulin nodded. These things can't be bought with white or blue crystals. Chu Failing was thinking about another issue. This place belongs to the Shao clan. The big businesses and auctions are all controlled by the Shao clan. Furthermore, the organizations and individuals that you speak of are all under the control of the Dharma Wielders organization. The law enforcers organization has blood payers in the entire upper three heavens. As long as there are enough purple crystals, they can post tasks. Then all the blood payers in the high heavens will see it. Those who are interested will take the task, in exchange for remuneration. Blood payer? Chu Yang asked with interest, what is a blood payer? The predecessor of blood payers was a punishment method set up by the law enforcers. That was to put up a bounty for those who committed heinous crimes in the heavenly layer and set a time limit to kill them, allowing all the experts in the heavenly layer to hunt them down and then reward those who succeeded. Because each of these rewards can only be exchanged with a bloody human life, they are called blood payers. But over time, people discovered that not only could this form kill people, but it could also do other things. For example, seeking revenge, finding medicine, killing people, bodyguards, escorting, and so on. As a result, the enforcers of the law specially set up the blood payer group to be in charge of this area. As for the warriors of the Great Bu continent, many of them are unwilling to live under someone else's roof, but they don't have the strength to start their own business, so they become blood payers. They relied on getting paid to live their lives. Over time, more and more people like this appeared, which led to the current situation. Basically, blood payers are free to do whatever they want. They don't want to be under anyone's jurisdiction. If they don't want to do something, they don't do it. However, most of them are still very hardworking, Chu Fian continued. Isn't this nonsense? Chu Failing looked at his younger brother gloomily. If they don't do anything, what do they eat? Drink? What do they use for cultivation? You must know that blood payers' missions start with black crystals, and most of them are made with purple crystals. And one purple crystal is enough to support an emperor-level expert for half a month with double cultivation. How can they not work hard and risk their lives? Chu Fian shrank his neck. I knew that I would be reprimanded if I spoke to you since I was young. There's such a fun group. Minister Chu's eyes suddenly lit up like light bulbs. Fun? Yang Rulin knocked on her son's head. This is a matter of life and death, and you say it's fun. Chu Fian twitched his mouth and thought, big sister-in-law, you don't know, the so-called human lives are just fun in the eyes of this minister, that's all. Although your son is young, the blood on his tender hands is probably 100 times more than the blood on the entire Chu clan. You still think that he's an obedient child, but no matter which channel you use, you need purple crystals. And a lot of purple crystals. Chu Failing said seriously. After all, isn't it just a matter of purple crystals? Chu Yang smiled disapprovingly. It's still very easy for me to earn some purple crystals in a short period of time. Moreover, I have the help of third uncle. Chu Fian's face suddenly wrinkled like a dried bitter gourd. Damn it, can't you not emphasize this matter? My heart trembles every time you emphasize it. Very easy? Chu Failing felt that he needed to correct his son's point of view. How can purple crystals be so easy? Now that a piece of purple crystal has appeared, it can cause many people to fight for it. Do you think that purple crystals are common goods? Don't think that purple crystals are everywhere just because you have a piece of purple crystal jade essence hanging on your neck. I don't think that purple crystals are common goods. I'm just saying with my current medical skills, I should be able to make a lot of money by opening a medical center, Chu Yang said calmly. Chu Failing snorted. Do you think that you can do whatever you want just because you have good medical skills? Opening a business is about being smooth and slick. Anything unexpected might cause you to be unable to move forward. You'll go bankrupt. Do you think that it's enough just because you have good medical skills? You're far from it. Do you think you can imagine all the scheming of the evil spirits? Big brother, you're too serious. With me there to help Yang, there shouldn't be any problems. Chu Fian smiled bitterly and tried to persuade him. He thought to himself, schemes and schemes? This is what your son is least afraid of. This young master is the master of schemes and schemes. Besides, if Yang goes out to do things by himself, he can also avoid conflict with second brother. Chu Fian said meaningfully. Chu Failing and Yang Rulin suddenly understood and looked at Chu Yang with a guilty look. Yang Rulin said in a low voice, Yang, good boy, you've been wronged. Chu Yang was stunned. How have I been wronged? I've been planning for so long to start a fight with them, and I'm about to see blood. How did it become a humiliation to my parents? Where did this come from? So be it. Chu Yang thought to himself and then said painfully, I'm not doing all this for this. After all, the more purple crystals there are, the better. And Sister needs everyone's help. So, Father, you just have to help me settle the medical center. As for the rest, you don't have to worry about it. This is good. Chu Feiling and Yang Rulin looked at each other and felt that if Chu Yang stayed in the clan now, he would be easily schemed against by the second brother and his sons. It was better to go out and lie low. The second brother and his sons were not easy to deal with, and their son was honest and pure. They were afraid that he would not be a match for them. If Chu Fian knew what the couple was thinking now, he would definitely pass out. After the matter was settled, Chu Yang felt relaxed and finally asked a question that had been in his heart for a long time. Mother, when you saw me, was there anyone else beside me? No, Yang Rulin said. Oh. Chu Yang frowned. Don't think about going back for another 3 days, Chu Feiling said majestically. All the passageways in the heavens have been closed. Even supreme martial artists can't pass through. Chu Yang was thinking about this, but he was shocked when he heard this. Why? Yang Rulin sighed and said, it's all because of the birth of that damned Calamity Sword Master, which caused the heavens and earth to be closed. Damned Calamity Sword Master? Chu Yang was stunned. There's such a thing? Hey, son, you have to be careful in the future. Try not to provoke others easily. This Calamity Sword Master is not someone to be trifled with. The cruelty and viciousness of this Calamity Sword Master is quite. Yang Rulin combed her son's hair lovingly and sincerely taught him. She gave her son a lesson about the cruel Calamity Sword Master. Chu Yang was speechless and said angrily, this Calamity Sword Master is really a jerk. Yang Rulin said, yes, Chu Yang. So, the four of them changed the topic from the clan, the upper 3 heavens, the flat mountain ridge, the Chu clan, Chu Lu's illness. Everyone worked together to talk about the terror of the Calamity Sword Master, the cruelty of the Calamity Sword Master, the success of the Calamity Sword Master, the legend of the Calamity Sword Master. Chu Yang laughed dryly and listened to them in a daze, as if he was listening to a book from heaven. Alas, it seems that this kid really has never heard of it. In the lower 3 heavens, who knows about the terror of the Calamity Sword Master? The 3 elders sighed in their hearts, and their desire to tutor Chu Yang became even stronger. Amidst the cursing of the Calamity Sword Master, Chu Yang felt extremely conflicted. He felt as if he was sitting on pins and needles, and spent the night as if it were a year. In the end, Minister Chu's saliva unknowingly dripped down to his chin, and he was in a daze. The evil Calamity Sword Master. Early the next morning, Chu Feiling immediately went to make arrangements for the medical center. Of course, it was under the banner of the clan, to seek benefits for the clan. Chu Fian had already gone out to investigate. Since he had decided to do it, he would go all out. Moreover, this was related to the future of his eldest nephew and the illness of his most beloved niece. Chu Yang drowsily supported his head and leaned on the chair. He thought of the conversation last night. All the medicinal materials are at sky-high prices. Even if you want to buy them, they won't sell them, and so on. He couldn't help but smile, and said to himself disdainfully, when did I say that I want to buy them? If I spend purple crystals for such little things, how troublesome. If I can't buy them, can't I steal them? Can't I steal them? Can't I take them by force? Cheating, swindling, stealing, robbing. What kind of methods can't I get them? As long as there are, they won't escape from my hands. Minister Chu gritted his teeth and thought, as for purple crystals, I'm waiting for others to deliver them to me. Do they really think that I'm going to open a medical center to save everyone? Chapter 750. Chu actually slept all the way from night to noon. When she woke up, the little girl stretched lazily. Her eyes were still drowsy, and she was somewhat surprised and confused. She tried to stand up and looked around in a daze. Suddenly she screamed, "Why don't I feel any pain today?" At the side, Duan Shuyi's face was covered in tears. She hugged her daughter and said, "It doesn't hurt anymore. It doesn't hurt anymore. It won't hurt anymore. My poor child." Chu looked around in disbelief. There was an indescribable fear on her face. It was as if the sudden cessation of pain was something unacceptable to her. After a long time, she finally woke up. She gently snuggled into her mother's embrace and said in a dreamy voice, "Mother, I don't feel pain anymore. This time it's real." Her voice was very soft, as if she was still afraid that this was a dream. If her voice was too loud, she would wake up from this dream. "It's true, it's true." Duan Shi hugged her daughter tightly as tears streamed down her face. "Your big brother cured you." Cured? Chu was still in a daze for a while before she finally woke up completely. She asked, "Mother, where's my elder brother?" "Your big brother has something important to do. He has already left." Duan Shi wiped her tears. "Let's go. Mother will take you out to comb your hair and dress up beautifully. When your big brother comes back." "Yes." Nodded vigorously. Her chronic illness had been cured by Chu Yang, so she had an inexplicable sense of dependence on Chu Yang. When she woke up and didn't see Chu Yang, she actually felt a sense of loss. It was as if someone she could rely on wasn't by her side. The mother and daughter went out. Yang Ruolan had already prepared a feast for her niece. She wanted to give her niece a good nourishment. Chu Yang and Chu Fian were already on their way to the medical center. If Chu Feiling were to personally handle this matter, wouldn't a small pharmacy be a piece of cake? And it was located on the busiest street of Wujin town in the flat mountain ridge. Chu Feilong didn't make things difficult for him. Moreover, he had personally arranged for it to be handled as soon as possible. As per Chu Yang's request, all the medicinal herbs inside were intercepted and kept as fodder. Then a counter, a consultation area, and a chair were added. A row of benches and a few rooms were prepared to accommodate the patients. That was all. But when Chu Yang arrived in front of this medical center, he found out that this small pharmacy that his father had mentioned, it was actually a huge mansion. Outside, there were a total of 7 rooms. Inside, there were 3 entrances and 3 exits. The richly ornamented buildings were surrounded by houses with small bridges and flowing water, flowers and trees. There was even a pavilion and a garden in the courtyard, with purple bamboo swaying in the wind. The moment Chu Yang saw this entire stretch of purple bamboo, he completely fell in love with this place. The purple bamboo was the eternal love of his heart. It was also the only scenery in the world that could shake his heart and soul. Beyond the heavens sect, the purple bamboo fluttered. In his previous life, he had met Emo Qingwu for the first time. It was a purple bamboo forest. He had pledged his love to Emo Qingwu in the purple bamboo forest. In his previous life, his final farewell to Emo Qingwu was still a field of purple bamboo. Chu Yang smiled faintly and walked into the purple bamboos in the courtyard. He stroked them one by one. His eyes were distant and full of disappointment. Who would have thought that the place where I, Chu Yang, started out in the upper 3 heavens would have such a stretch of purple bamboo? Chu Fian looked at Chu Yang wandering in the purple bamboo forest. His eyes revealed a strange look, but he didn't go forward to disturb him. He knew that Chu Yang seemed to have recalled something. No one would want to be disturbed at such a time. After a long time, when Chu Yang came out of the purple bamboo forest, Chu Fian seemed to feel that something had changed in Chu Yang, but he couldn't put his finger on it. It was as if he had put down something, but also as if he had picked up something. "How many people do you need?" Chu Fian asked. "The 2 of us are enough." Chu Yang smiled. "The 2 of us?" Chu Fian was surprised. "Such a big foundation and there are only 2 of us? Can we handle it?" "Don't worry." Chu Yang smiled mysteriously. "The 2 of us are enough." He smiled gently and said, "My father and mother can't come here. After all, they are the eldest in the Chu clan. Other than them, I don't have anyone else that I can trust." He looked at Chu Fian and said, "Fourth uncle, there's only the 2 of us left to build a great foundation." Chu Fian touched his nose and smiled bitterly. Minister Chu, as long as you don't break up my old bones and sell them, I'll go crazy with your eldest nephew. Chu Yang tilted his head and looked at him, saying, Fourth uncle, you'll definitely become a legend in the Chongtian continent. Of course. Chu Fian smiled even more bitterly. A legend whose tail is pinched by his own nephew. I guess I'm the only one since ancient times. Chu Yang laughed loudly. Fourth uncle, I don't understand. Why didn't you force yourself on me and bring me back to verify my identity? Wouldn't everything be fine if you did that? Chu Yang asked puzzledly. Chu Fian's face suddenly turned yellow. He stretched out 2 hands, 3 fingers on his left hand and 5 fingers on his right hand, saying, My dear eldest nephew, do you think I didn't want to do that? To tell you the truth, I've already brought back 35 people before you. Chu Yang was stunned. 35? Do you know what that means? Chu Fian couldn't help but twitch a little. He asked with a bitter smile. What does that mean? Chu Yang asked curiously. It means 71 rounds of beatings. Chu Fian wanted to cry but had no tears. Every time I brought back the wrong person, your grandpa would beat me up. Your father would comfort me every time. Then he would get angry at your mother and beat me up the next day. 2 rounds of beatings every time. There's no exception, Chu Fian said speechlessly. That's still 70 rounds of beatings, not 71. Chu Yang was very good at math. But the last time, Elder happened to come out from his closed-door training. Chu Fian couldn't bear to look back. That beating was really terrible. Your luck is really incurable. Fourth uncle. Chu Yang looked at his fourth uncle sympathetically. And the last time, the elder gave me an ultimatum. If I can't find the real one and bring back a fake one, the elder will turn me into a fake one too. Chu Fian said tearfully as he sighed. Ugh. Chu Yang said sincerely, Ancestor, you're really my idol. He's also my idol. Chu Fian said sorrowfully. Chu Fian's mood was very bad after Chu Yang mentioned his sad memories. On the same day, he yelled and called for workers. Then he personally oversaw the work. He held the whip in his hand like a fiend and cracked it loudly. He completed Chu Yang's request within 2 hours. It was only afternoon before the sky turned dark, but everything was done. Minister Chu grabbed a plaque. With his own hands, he wrote 5 large words in a flamboyant style. Purple crystals Hui Chun Hall. Then, Chu Fian melted gold and iron into a magnificent plaque according to Chu Yang's request. He hung it on the door. The couplets were naturally made by Chu Yang. Chu Fian was the second shopkeeper, the workers, the nurses and the waiters. He took care of everything. The first part of the couplet was, Give me purple crystals, and I'll bring you back to life. The second part of the couplet was, Without purple crystals, I'll leave you to die. She looked exactly like a greedy person. In particular, Minister Chu had ingeniously made the door of the purple crystals Hui Chun Hall into an oval shape. From afar, the plaque and the couplets on the left and right were like ancient beasts opening their bloody mouths. Very vividly he said, Brothers, as long as you dare to walk in, I'll dare to kill you. It vividly expressed Minister Chu's thirst for purple crystals. The walls on both sides were originally white. Chu Yang ordered people to paint them white again to advertise. On the left was, specializes in treating difficult and complicated diseases. We don't take care of minor illnesses and disasters. It's normal to come back from the dead. There are internal and external injuries. Will be cured. On the right was, specializes in treating impotence and premature ejaculation. Then he drew the shape of a burly man. His back was straight, his face was full of beard, and his eyes were full of lust. He stepped out and crushed a big rock under his feet. On this burly man's straight waist, there were a few large words written in bold, Men, it's better to be a little bit taller. Beside the foot of this burly man, there were a few big words in the same color. Men are better the harder they are. On the burly man, there was a few words. I despise weaklings. On one side, there was only a thick tree stump. Only 1/3 of the big picture was shown. Not a single word was written. Yu Yunjiu. But Minister Chu clearly felt that it wasn't enough. He actually wrote a few words on the wall of the restaurant. "Come, I'll let you do it however you want." Below, there was a small line of words, "Specializes in treating infertility." Chu Yang's abacus was very loud. Nowadays, there were a lot of people who did not have children. Martial artists were particular about refining energy into energy. It wasn't easy to give birth until they reached a certain level, and everyone hoped that they could nurture their descendants through dual cultivation. In that way, they could lay a good foundation for their children when they reached the Xiantian level. So, most of the experts in the heavenly layer world only had descendants when they were old. This was also a major reason that restricted the development of the clan and the reproduction of their descendants. But Minister Chu had 2 lust dragons in his hands and was very confident about this. He definitely dared to say this. Can't give birth in 30 years? Can't give birth in 50 years? Can't give birth in 200 years? No problem. As long as you come to me, I'll let you give birth. Chu Fian looked at his eldest nephew who was writing on the snow-white wall. The words he wrote were like dragons flying and phoenixes flying. It was really beautiful. He was praising in his heart, this eldest nephew is really good at martial arts. He's a genius in all aspects. And he can treat illnesses. He's definitely a first-class talent. Then he saw a series of advertisements written by Minister Chu. Suddenly, Chu Fian's balls almost cramped. What's this? It's simply laughable and not presentable. Just as he was about to step forward to stop him, Minister Chu said slowly, "Fourth uncle, when you found me, why didn't you tell the family? I just can't understand this." Chu Fian's lips turned green and his face turned white. He covered his head and ran away like a rat. That night, Minister Chu was busy in the Purple Crystal's Huichun Hall. The next morning, as countless fireworks and firecrackers exploded crazily, a piece of news shook the flat mountain ridge of the upper 3 heavens. The medical hall of the peerless divine doctor, Purple Crystal's Huichun Hall, had opened. Third update, requesting monthly votes. He couldn't let his brothers say that Feng Ling wouldn't update if everyone voted for him. So he worked very hard to speed up the plot and publish this update. Tomorrow is July 1st. Chapter 751. Part 7 Chapter 20. Business is difficult, we need to tackle many problems at the same time. Big Boss Chu was wearing a red groom's robe. He was smiling as he welcomed the guests at the entrance of the shop. His eyes were shining with the brilliance of purple crystals. He looked like a rich man. What a sensation. This street was originally the most prosperous one. There were all kinds of people here. Opposite were 2 famous restaurants in the flat mountain ridge. A few hundred feet away was the Bloodpayers' Hall of the law enforcement officers. The Shao clan's auction and the headquarters of the big chambers of commerce were all on this street. There were many tall buildings. With the sound of the fireworks, everyone rushed over to see what was going on. Even the people from the big clans rushed over. The shopkeepers of the various shops rushed over personally. Because everyone knew that this shop belonged to the Chu clan. It seemed that the Chu clan was going to make a new move. But when everyone got here and saw what was going on, they were all dumbfounded and tongue-tied. Some stared with their eyes wide open, some shook their heads and sighed in disappointment, some looked around in disbelief, and there were even some who burst into laughter. Was this really the Chu clan's shop? Why did such a ridiculous thing suddenly appear? This was even more disgusting than the banners of the martial world. Even the pimps who shouted, "Golden Spear, never fall," in the brothels, seemed to be better than this. It was even weirder when they looked again. Other than the Chu clan's 4th master, Chu Fian, no one else was here. So everyone muttered, was this really the Chu clan's shop? Or, what is the Chu clan up to again? Who is that young man? Chu Failing's wife, who originally wanted to come and watch the ceremony, went back with a red face after seeing Chu Yang's advertisement. As she walked, she gritted her teeth. Chu Yang, this little bastard. When he comes back, I must teach him a lesson. How embarrassing. The Chu clan's 4th master had nowhere to run. He stood at the entrance of the shop in his red robe. His face turned into a monkey's, but After the fireworks and firecrackers were set off like a one-man show, the other bosses still entered the shop in a daze. Then they congratulated each other, put down their gift bags, and congratulated each other at the speed of a machine gun. Then they left as if they were running for their lives. It wasn't easy to stay in this shop. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation. If we stay here for one more minute, the news of "I can't make it" will spread. How are we going to live then? Chu Yang looked at the table full of red packets and smiled. Seems like this is the fastest way to make money. Should I close the shop today and reopen it tomorrow? He turned his head and saw that Chu Fian was already lying on the chair, gasping for air, on the brink of death. What's wrong with you? Chu Yang was surprised. I've never been so embarrassed in my life before. Chu Fian cried and said, You're fucking acting like you're selling aphrodisiac. What do you mean by putting on a posture of selling aphrodisiac? Chu Yang said discontentedly, I am selling aphrodisiac. Fourth Master Chu's neck tilted and he fainted. Before Shu Michuan too fainted, she felt that her reputation had gone down the drain. No wonder this novel said that if I follow him, I will definitely be able to reach the heavens. He was probably already famous in history. Chu Fian, the fourth son of the Chu clan who specialized in aphrodisiacs. Chu Fian cried but had no tears. Big Boss Chu's debao had been open for a whole day, but it was completely empty. Chu Yang winked at Chu Fian. Fourth uncle, we'll start the operation tonight. What operation? Chu Fian asked puzzledly. We'll find a few places and set a few fires. There shouldn't be any problem, right? Chu Yang smiled kindly and winked mischievously. Chu Fian was confused. Set a fire? Our business is very difficult. We need to do many things at the same time. Chu Yang said worriedly. Chu Fian thought so too. However, Chu Fian soon realized what his eldest nephew meant by multi-pronged. That night, a warehouse of a big business in Wujin town of the flat mountain ridge suddenly emitted a red light. Then, flames started to rise from all directions. In the entire Wujin town of the flat mountain ridge, no less than 30 people were on fire from all directions. 7 asterisk. Immediately, the people shouted and the horses neighed. The sounds of gongs and drums resounded through the sky, and the long howls echoed for a long time. It was the experts from each side gathering their men. Curses that almost drowned out the entire heaven and earth rose and fell in an uproar just like that. Damn it, everyone was sleeping well. Which immoral person set a fire? Isn't this a bastard? After Chu Fian finished setting the fire, he sneaked back to the Purple Crystals Hall. When he entered the hall, he realized that the big boss was not inside. He couldn't help but wonder, where did Chu Yang go? His cultivation hasn't recovered yet. Where could he have gone? He recalled Chu Yang's words before he left. After setting the fire, don't go anywhere. Just come back and look after the house. He seemed to have expected this long ago. Fourth Master Chu was confused. What's this little bastard up to? Where did Big Boss Chu go? The current Big Boss Chu had already changed his body shape. He had become short and fat. He was dressed in black. In the night, he was like a rubber ball. With the sword spirit possessing his body, his speed was really as fast as light. The first thing he did was to go to a shop of the Chu clan. Minister Chu had already asked around. The person in charge of this shop was Chu Feilong's confidant. Since the entire Wujin town was going to suffer, there was no reason why the Chu clan would not suffer, right? Therefore, Chu Feilong's shop became Chu Yang's primary target. Minister Chu used an earth-shattering momentum to rush in. He shook his hands and knocked over 2 guards. After slapping them a dozen times, he asked for the location of the warehouse. He dashed over like a gust of wind and kicked out. 2 huge bronze doors flew out like a pair of wings. Then, Minister Chu casually walked into the warehouse. The guards inside were still in a state of shock. Just as they rushed forward, Chu Yang simply swept the floor, and the 8 burly men were sent flying into the air. Chu Yang waved his firecracker. Immediately, a gust of thick smoke came out. With a whoosh, he rose from the thick smoke. From afar, he could see 4 figures rushing over. Chu Yang snorted, but didn't say anything. He swooped down from midair and swept past the 4 men like a whirlwind. Bang, bang, bang. The 4 king-level experts swayed a few times as if they were suffering from hysteria. Then they screamed like pigs being slaughtered. They fell to the ground and rolled around. Chu Yang had already brutally entered the inner shop. That confidant of Chu Feilong was carrying a small box and trying to squeeze out of the window. He had just stuck his head out. Chu Yang sneered. He quickly stepped forward, grabbed the thick buttocks, and pulled them back. A strange scream was heard. This king-level expert was already screaming with all his might. Chu Yang had grabbed and flung his butt, and he had lost a whole pound of flesh. Then, Chu Yang poked him a few times. He grabbed the small box with one hand and flew out like a gust of wind. The people in the shop shouted and chased after him. However, they saw a gentle breeze and a bright moon in the sky. People were shouting and horses were neighing from all directions. It was as if the end of the world had arrived. However, the masked man in black who had just stolen the small box had already disappeared. Only the shopkeeper and the 4 martial deacons were wailing and rolling on the ground. It was as if they had received the cruelest punishment in the world. Chu Yang's move was an extremely evil martial art that he had retrieved from the first Tribulation Sword Master's memory, Yang Dispersing Soul Hand. This was an extremely evil martial art. The victim's entire body would spasm and his joints would be dislocated. This was only the first stage. If the victim could not be cured within a day, the punishment would be even worse. For example, this evil martial art could loosen a person's lumbar vertebrae and pelvis. Then one of them would be smashed forward and the other would be smashed backward. One could only imagine how it would feel like. However, this was not the only thing. At the same time, the person's shoulders, arms, and other important joints would be dislocated and smashed into each other. This was originally a martial art that was specially used for interrogation. After the first Tribulation Sword Master learned it, it became an evil martial art. Now, the sword spirit was controlling Chu Yang's body and using this martial art. He even added his own understanding of the changes. No one would be able to recognize this martial art from 10,000 years ago. Even if the first Tribulation Sword Master came here personally, he would not be able to recognize it. Moreover, in the current heaven-level continent, other than the sword spirit and Chu Yang, no one else could understand this martial art. Minister Chu disappeared as soon as he came out of the hall. The small box was directly stored in the tribulation space. When he opened it, Chu Yang was greatly disappointed. There were only a dozen red crystals, 100 blue crystals, 2 black crystals, and not a single purple crystal. Fuck! Big Boss Chu scolded angrily. You spent so much effort just for such a small thing? So unlucky. He did not think that the assets of the shops of the big clans here were basically returned to the clan once every 3 days. The wealth that he had now was already equivalent to 3 days' worth of the shop's income. Besides, this was already an amazing amount of wealth. And this was just one shop. Chu Yang's black figure was illuminated by the fire in the night. He had already pounced on other places that were on fire like a demon. He destroyed everything in his way. The sword spirit did not even use much strength, but the experts who were guarding the warehouse were already in a mess. Chu Yang reckoned that he had already killed more than 30 third-grade martial kings and a dozen third-grade martial emperors. Basically, every clan had a few. Chu Yang became more and more excited. He was extremely daring. He even looted the 3 biggest shops of the Shao clan. Bang, 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 bang. A first-grade monarch-level expert, an emperor-level expert, and 18 first-grade king-level experts of the Shao clan met with calamity at the same time. Big Boss Chu ransacked more than 30 shops. What made him depressed was that he did not even find a single purple crystal. He only collected less than 100 black crystals, but the blue crystals and red crystals were piled up like a mountain. Big Boss Chu checked with red eyes. Every time he checked, he scolded. He only felt depressed. After putting in so much effort, he only received such a small amount of things. This was simply an insult to Minister Chu's intelligence. Big Boss Chu was very dissatisfied. He made up his mind and went straight to the auction hall of the law enforcement officers while cursing. Fuck, since I've already done it once, I'll make it the biggest one. Anyway, who the fuck knows that I did it? You're tuning in to the Han Li's Immortal Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.